I'm Madison, 33, and I never thought my own family would betray me so completely. My carefully built financial stability came crashing down when I checked my account during lunch and saw it. $56,000 charged to my premium credit card. The purchases? First-class flights to Paris, luxury hotels, and shopping sprees. The culprits? My parents and sister Natalie. My stomach dropped as realization hit. They had stolen my card information and were living it up in Paris at my expense. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had family take advantage of your generosity. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. My life in Boston had been carefully constructed through years of hard work and discipline. As a senior financial analyst at Meridian Consulting, I'd recently received a promotion after 5 years of dedicated service. The promotion came with several executive benefits, including a premium credit card with an impressively high limit. I remember feeling proud when it arrived in the mail, seeing it as recognition of my financial responsibility and career success. My apartment in the Back Bay area wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. I'd saved for years to make the down payment, carefully budgeting every expense while my peers splurged on vacations and designer clothes. Financial security meant everything to me, perhaps because I'd grown up watching my parents struggle. Linda and Richard, my parents, were both public school teachers in our small Connecticut hometown. They lived paycheck to paycheck, sometimes taking on summer jobs to make ends meet. I learned early on that money was tight, so I never asked for extras. When college application time came around, I applied for every scholarship possible and worked part-time throughout my undergraduate years at Boston University. Between scholarships, loans, and my jobs waiting tables and tutoring, I managed to cover my education costs with minimal help from my parents. My sister Natalie had a very different experience. 3 years younger than me, she was always the family favorite. Where I was practical and studious, Natalie was creative and spontaneous. My parents called her their free spirit, which somehow translated to fewer responsibilities and more indulgences. When Natalie decided to attend Syracuse University to study communications, my parents suddenly found the money to cover her tuition. They took out a second mortgage on their house, something they had refused to do for me. Natalie isn't as academically gifted as you, my mother explained when I questioned the disparity. She needs more support. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Meridian and began climbing the corporate ladder. Meanwhile, Natalie bounced between jobs, eventually settling into what she called a career as a lifestyle influencer. In reality, this meant posting sporadically on Instagram and YouTube, never earning enough to support herself fully. She moved back home with our parents at 25, ostensibly to build her brand, but 4 years later, she was still there, still financially dependent. Throughout the years, I'd become the family bank. When my father needed dental work not covered by insurance, I paid the $3,000 bill. When Natalie's car broke down, I covered the $2,500 repair. When my parents' roof leaked, I contributed $5,000 toward fixing it. These loans were rarely acknowledged and never repaid. Each time I told myself it would be different, that they would appreciate my sacrifice, but the pattern continued. 2 weeks before the Paris incident, we had gathered for our monthly family dinner at my parents' house. Natalie was unusually subdued, picking at her food while my mother fussed over her. Brandon broke up with her, my mother whispered when Natalie left the table. She's devastated. Brandon was Natalie's latest boyfriend, a marketing executive she'd been dating for 6 months. I hadn't met him but had heard plenty about their glamorous dates and weekend getaways. When Natalie returned, she sighed dramatically. I've always dreamed of going to Paris. It would be perfect to heal my broken heart. My father patted her hand. Someday, sweetie. The conversation shifted to my recent promotion. I mentioned the upcoming business trip to London scheduled for the following month, including the new corporate card I'd received. What kind of benefits does it have? My father asked, seemingly casual. Travel insurance, concierge service, no foreign transaction fees, I replied. It's mainly for business expenses. Do you have to pay it yourself first and get reimbursed? My mother inquired. Looking back, these questions should have raised red flags, but years of conditioning had taught me to dismiss my suspicions where family was concerned. I even showed them the sleek metal card when my father asked to see it, completely unaware of what would follow. Throughout my adult life, I'd struggled with my family's dynamics. Despite my financial success, I still craved their approval. Perhaps that's why I continued to help them financially, hoping that generosity would eventually buy their respect. Deep down, I knew this wasn't healthy, but breaking free from childhood patterns is harder than any spreadsheet analysis or market projection I'd ever tackled at work. My friend Rebecca had pointed this out during our last coffee date. "Madison, you're still trying to earn their love," she observed. "But you deserve it unconditionally." I'd brushed off her concern, changing the subject to her recent engagement. It was easier to focus on other people's lives than to examine the painful truth of my own family situation. I took pride in being the responsible one, the successful one, even as resentment simmered beneath the surface. After all, responsibility was my identity, the quality that defined me. But what happens when the people who should appreciate your responsibility exploit it instead? I was about to find out. Monday started like any other day. I woke at 5:30 a.m., went for my usual run along the Charles River, and arrived at the office by 7:45. I had an important presentation scheduled for that afternoon, so I spent the morning polishing my slides and reviewing the market analysis I'd prepared for our client, a healthcare startup looking to expand internationally. At noon, I stepped out to grab a sandwich from the deli across the street. While waiting in line, I pulled out my phone to check emails. That's when I noticed several notifications from my credit card company. At first, I assumed they were routine alerts about the statement closing date or rewards points. But when I saw fraud alert in the subject line of multiple messages, my heart began to race. Abandoning my place in line, I stepped outside to call the credit card company immediately. After verifying my identity, the representative's tone became sympathetic. "Ms. Thompson, we've detected unusual activity on your account over the past 48 hours. There have been several large charges made in Paris, France. Since these don't align with your typical spending patterns, our system flagged them for review." "Paris?" I repeated, confused. "I haven't authorized any charges in Paris. What exactly are we talking about?" The representative began listing the transactions, each one landing like a physical blow. 3 first-class tickets on Air France from New York to Paris, $18,500. 4 nights at the Hotel Plaza Athene, $12,000. Shopping charges at Chanel, $5,800. Louis Vuitton on the Champs-Élysées, $7,200. Dinner at L'Ambroisie, $1,400. The list continued, reaching a staggering total of $56,000 and climbing. These charges were made under what names? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. The hotel reservation is under Richard Thompson, and the flight tickets were purchased for Richard, Linda, and Natalie Thompson. My parents and sister. The realization hit me with such force that I had to lean against the building for support. While I was preparing for my presentation, they were using my credit card to fund a luxury Parisian vacation. "I need to dispute these charges," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "These were made without my authorization." Still on the phone with the credit card representative, I opened Instagram and searched for Natalie's profile. Sure enough, her most recent story showed her toasting with champagne at the Eiffel Tower, our parents smiling beside her. The next image displayed shopping bags from Chanel and Louis Vuitton arranged artfully on a hotel bed. The caption read, "Best surprise ever. Mom and Dad are the greatest." My hands shook as I scrolled through more posts. They had arrived in Paris the previous day and were clearly enjoying every extravagant moment at my expense. The credit card representative continued speaking, explaining the dispute process and investigation timeline, but her words became background noise as I struggled to process the betrayal. After ending the call, I stood frozen outside the deli, unable to move. Nausea swept over me in waves, and my vision narrowed to a pinpoint. I'd experienced anxiety attacks before, but nothing like this overwhelming sense of violation. Somehow, I made it back to the office, but focusing on work became impossible. During our team meeting, my boss noticed my distraction. "Madison, are you all right? You seem off today." "I'm not feeling well," I managed to reply. "Would it be possible for someone else to handle the presentation this afternoon?" Concern flashed across her face. In 5 years, I had never asked to be relieved of a responsibility. She nodded, instructing my colleague Devin to take over, and suggested I go home early. The drive to my apartment passed in a blur. Once inside, I collapsed onto my couch, phone in hand, and began calling my parents. No answer. I tried Natalie. Straight to voicemail. I sent text messages to all three, asking them to contact me immediately about an urgent financial matter. An hour later, my mother finally responded, "We'll talk later, enjoying special family time." Special family time. The phrase ignited fresh anger. For years, I'd been excluded from many family activities because I was too busy with work or wouldn't enjoy it anyway. Now they were having special family time funded by my credit card without my knowledge or consent. Natalie's response came next. "Don't be dramatic, it's just money. You make plenty of it anyway." Just money. My money. Money I'd earned through years of hard work and careful planning. Money that represented security, independence, and future opportunities. To them, it was just money because it wasn't theirs. I spent the evening alone in my apartment, alternating between rage and disbelief. How had they obtained my card information? Then I remembered showing my father the card at dinner. He must have memorized or photographed the details when I wasn't looking. The premeditation made the betrayal even worse. As I scrolled through more of Natalie's social media posts, the full extent of their extravagance became clear. While I ate a microwave dinner alone in my apartment, they were dining at Michelin-starred restaurants. While I worried about my presentation, they were shopping at designer boutiques. The disparity was staggering, the injustice raw. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those Instagram photos, my family smiling and celebrating their Paris adventure at my expense. By morning, their betrayal had crystallized into a cold, hard reality that demanded action. Tuesday morning brought no relief. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the morning trying again to reach my family. When they continued to ignore my calls, I left a detailed voicemail for my father. "Dad, this is Madison. I need you to call me back immediately. My credit card company has alerted me to over $56,000 in unauthorized charges in Paris under your names. This is credit card fraud, which is a criminal offense. Please call me by the end of the day so we can discuss how to handle this situation." I followed this with an email to all three of them, itemizing every charge that had appeared on my account and explaining the serious financial impact these unauthorized expenses would have on my life. I set a clear deadline: respond by 5 p.m. Eastern Time, or I would have no choice but to escalate the situation. At noon, I met my friend Jasmine for lunch. As a bank manager, she had experience with fraud cases and could offer both professional advice and personal support. "Madison, this is serious," she said after hearing the full story. "What they've done is illegal, regardless of your family relationship." "I know," I replied, pushing my untouched salad around the plate. "But the thought of my parents facing legal consequences." Jasmine reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "That's exactly what they're counting on. They knew you wouldn't press charges because they're family. They're exploiting your love and loyalty." Her words stung because they were true. My family had calculated that I would ultimately forgive them, as I always had before. The realization strengthened my resolve to hold them accountable this time. By Tuesday evening, the deadline had passed with no substantive response. Then, just as I was preparing for bed, my phone rang. My father's name appeared on the screen. "Finally," I answered. "I've been trying to reach you for 2 days." "What's this about fraud?" he demanded, his tone more annoyed than concerned. "We're trying to enjoy our vacation." "The vacation you charged to my credit card without my permission? Over $56,000 worth of charges." "Oh, that." He sounded dismissive. "Natalie needed this trip after her breakup. You know how sensitive she is." And that justifies stealing from me? We didn't steal anything, he countered. We're family. We'll pay you back eventually when we can. When you can. Dad, this isn't a small loan. It's $56,000. You make six figures, Madison. This won't hurt you like it would us. We've never had a vacation like this. The conversation continued in this vein, with my father minimizing their actions and my concerns. When I mentioned potential legal implications, he scoffed. You wouldn't report your own parents to the police. Don't be ridiculous. After disconnecting, I sat in stunned silence. Not once had he apologized. Not once had he acknowledged the breach of trust. Instead, he had treated me as unreasonable for being upset about their theft. Wednesday brought a call from my mother, her approach different but equally manipulative. Madison, sweetie, I know you're upset, she began, her voice gentle. But try to understand our position. After all we've sacrificed for you growing up. What sacrifices, Mom? I put myself through college. I've been financially independent since graduation. Meanwhile, you've paid for everything for Natalie. That's not fair, she protested. Natalie needs more support. You've always been stronger, more capable. Family helps family, that's what we taught you. This isn't helping, Mom. This is taking advantage. You should see how happy Natalie is, she continued, ignoring my point. She's been posting how much fun she's having. For the first time in months, she's smiling again. Don't you want your sister to be happy? The implication was clear. If I insisted they return the money, I would be responsible for Natalie's unhappiness. It was emotional blackmail, pure and simple. You need to come home immediately, I said firmly. We need to discuss repayment arrangements in person. We can't cut our trip short, my mother replied, sounding shocked at the suggestion. We've already planned everything. We'll talk when we get back next week. Next week. They intended to continue their vacation for several more days, presumably charging more expenses to my card. The conversation ended with no resolution, only more frustration. That afternoon, fresh charges appeared on my account. A helicopter tour of Paris, $3,500, another shopping spree at Dior, $4,200, and lunch at Le Jules Verne in the Eiffel Tower, $950. Meanwhile, Natalie's Instagram continued to document their extravagance, with a recent post captioned, "Some people think money is more important than family healing." The passive-aggressive jab was clearly directed at me. She was publicly painting me as the villain for objecting to their unauthorized use of my credit card. The unfairness of it burned. At work, my distraction had become noticeable. My boss pulled me aside after a meeting where I'd misrepresented some key figures. Madison, this isn't like you. Is everything all right? I gave her a vague explanation about family issues, promising to get back on track soon. She was understanding but concerned, reminding me that our client presentation had been rescheduled for the following week and needed my full attention. The pressure was mounting from all sides. My family's continued exploitation, their refusal to acknowledge the seriousness of their actions, my professional responsibilities suffering from the distraction, and the growing financial impact as new charges appeared daily. Thursday brought another complication. My Aunt Sophia called, clearly having been recruited by my parents to intervene. Madison, your parents told me about your little disagreement, she began. Why are you making such a big deal about this? They've done so much for you. Aunt Sophia, they took my credit card information without permission and charged over $56,000 for a luxury vacation. That's not a little disagreement. It's theft. Such harsh words for family, she chided. They're just trying to give Natalie something special after her heartbreak. You know how fragile she is. The conversation left me feeling even more isolated. It seemed my entire family had united against me, dismissing my legitimate concerns and casting me as selfish for wanting control over my own finances. Later that day, I discovered they had extended their trip by 3 additional days, upgrading their hotel suite in the process. The new charges included a spa day for all 3 of them, totaling over $2,000. It was as if they were deliberately pushing to see how far they could go, how much they could take before I finally snapped. The breaking point was approaching rapidly. Thursday evening, I invited Jasmine over to discuss my options. As we sat at my kitchen table reviewing the growing list of charges, she outlined my choices with brutal clarity. "You have three options," she explained. "1. You can let this continue and accept the charges, essentially giving them a free vacation. 2. You can report this as fraud to the credit card company and potentially press charges, which would have serious legal consequences for your parents and sister. Or 3. You can freeze the card to prevent further charges while you figure out how to handle repayment." "What exactly would happen if I reported this as fraud?" I asked. "The credit card company would investigate. Given the evidence, they would likely pursue criminal charges for credit card fraud. Your parents and sister could face fines or even jail time, depending on how the prosecutor decides to handle it." The thought of my parents in legal trouble made my stomach churn, despite their betrayal. Jasmine sensed my hesitation. "I know it's difficult," she said gently. "But consider this. If a stranger had stolen your card information and charged $56,000, what would you do?" "I'd report it immediately," I answered without hesitation. Why should family get away with something a stranger couldn't? Her question hung in the air between us. Why indeed? Because I love them? Because we shared blood? Did that give them the right to exploit me? After Jasmine left, I called the credit card company again to discuss my options. The representative confirmed that I could freeze the card immediately, which would prevent any new charges while leaving the account active. This would give me time to decide on next steps without accumulating additional debt. "This won't affect any pending charges that have already been authorized," she warned. "But it will block any new attempts to use the card." I thanked her and hung up, still uncertain. Freezing the card would send a clear message, but it would also strand my family in Paris. They would be furious, and the relationship damage might be irreparable. But letting them continue their spending spree would drain my savings and reinforce their belief that they could take advantage of me without consequences. I paced my apartment, weighing the options. The financial impact of their actions was significant. The $56,000 already charged would deplete most of my emergency fund. I'd been saving for a down payment on a larger apartment, planning to rent out my current place for additional income. Those plans would now be delayed by at least a year. Beyond the money, though, was the breach of trust. They had taken my card information without permission, made extravagant purchases they knew they couldn't afford, and then dismissed my concerns when confronted. If I didn't establish boundaries now, what would stop them from doing this again? I remembered my therapist's words from months earlier when I discussed my family's habit of asking for loans. Enabling harmful behavior isn't kindness. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a boundary. At my kitchen table late that night, I spread out childhood photos alongside my financial statements. In one image, I stood proudly beside my father after winning a mathematics competition in 8th grade. In another, my mother hugged me at college graduation. Then there was Natalie's high school graduation, where my parents had presented her with a car they couldn't afford, while I'd received a gift card for my achievements. The pattern was clear. Throughout our lives, Natalie had been indulged while I was expected to fend for myself. And now, as adults, they were continuing the same dynamic, taking from me to give to her. With shaking hands, I logged into my credit card account. The option to freeze the card was prominently displayed on the account management page. I moved the cursor over the button, hesitated, then clicked. A confirmation dialog appeared. "Are you sure you want to freeze your card? This will prevent any new charges until you unfreeze it." I took a deep breath and clicked confirm. The screen refreshed, displaying a message that my card had been successfully frozen. No new charges would be approved. A wave of emotions washed over me. Relief, anxiety, guilt, and underneath it all, a quiet sense of empowerment. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had set a firm boundary with my family. Whatever happened next, I had taken back control of my finances and, by extension, my relationship with them. My phone rang shortly after. It was Rebecca calling to check on me, as she did every few days. "I froze the card," I told her, my voice steadier than I expected. "Good for you. She replied without hesitation. How do you feel? Terrified.
Relieved. Guilty.
Strong. All of it at once. That sounds about right, she said with a small laugh. The guilt will fade, but the strength will grow. You did the right thing, Madison. After we hung up, I prepared responses for the inevitable fallout. I knew my family would call once they discovered the card was declined, and I wanted to be ready with clear, firm statements. I rehearsed what I would say, focusing on the facts rather than emotions. Despite my preparation, sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, imagining their reactions, second-guessing my decision, then reaffirming it. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, but my resolve remained intact. I rose early and began my morning meditation, focusing on mantras of strength and self-respect. Whatever storm was coming, I would weather it. I had done nothing wrong by protecting myself from further exploitation. That knowledge would be my anchor in the difficult days ahead. The first call came at 5:30 a.m. Friday morning, which was evening in Paris. My father's name flashed on my phone screen, and I took a deep breath before answering. What have you done? He demanded without preamble, his voice tight with anger. The card was just declined at dinner. I froze the account, I replied, my voice calm despite my racing heart. No new charges will be approved. Unfreeze it immediately, he ordered. We're in the middle of our vacation. A vacation you charged to my card without permission. I'm not unfreezing it. Madison, this is spiteful and cruel. We're your family. Yes, you are, I agreed. Which makes your actions even more hurtful. You took my card information without asking, charged tens of thousands of dollars without my consent, and ignored my attempts to discuss it for days. Those aren't the actions of loving family members. So, you're just going to strand us in Paris? His voice rose, indignation clear in every syllable. What kind of daughter does that? The kind who's tired of being taken advantage of. You have your own credit cards. Use them. Our cards are maxed out. You know that. And there it was. The admission that they had planned this knowing they couldn't pay for it themselves. They had deliberately put the burden on me, assuming I would bear it without complaint. That's not my problem, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. You should have considered that before booking a luxury vacation you couldn't afford. The conversation deteriorated from there, with my father threatening that I was no longer part of this family if I didn't immediately unfreeze the card. I remained steadfast, ending the call when his threats became repetitive. My mother called next, her approach predictably different. Where my father had been angry, she was tearful. Do you know how humiliating it was? She sobbed. Standing there at that beautiful restaurant while the waiter said our card was declined? Everyone was staring at us. I'm sorry you were embarrassed, I replied, genuinely meaning it. Public humiliation wasn't my intent. But this situation is the result of choices you made, not me. We're your parents, Madison. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? I put myself through college. I've been financially independent since graduation. Meanwhile, I've given you and Dad and Natalie thousands of dollars over the years, none of which has ever been repaid. Her sobs intensified. How can you be so cold? So calculating? This isn't how we raised you. No, you raised me to be responsible and independent. I'm simply expecting the same from you. After my mother, Natalie's texts began flooding in. Unlike our parents, who at least attempted to justify their actions, Natalie went straight to personal attacks. You selfish bitch. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're ruining the one good thing that's happened to me all year. Must be nice sitting in your perfect apartment with your perfect job while making the rest of us miserable. Everyone's going to know what a heartless person you really are. I didn't respond to her texts, knowing it would only fuel her anger. Instead, I muted notifications from her number and focused on preparing for work. The emotional toll was exhausting, but I was determined not to let their actions derail my professional responsibilities as well. By midday, social media became another battleground. Natalie had posted a tearful Instagram story claiming she was stranded in Paris because my sister decided to cut us off without warning. She shared screenshots of our text conversations, carefully edited to remove context and make me appear unreasonable. Several mutual friends and extended family members saw the posts and began calling or messaging me, asking what was happening. Some were sympathetic once they heard the full story, while others sided with my family, suggesting I should be the bigger person and resolve the situation. My cousin Taylor called, confusion in her voice. "Natalie's saying you abandoned them in Paris out of spite. That doesn't sound like you." I explained the situation truthfully, including the unauthorized charges and my attempts to address the issue before freezing the card. "That's so different from what they're saying," Taylor remarked. "They're making it sound like you agreed to pay for the trip and then change your mind halfway through." "That's not remotely what happened," I assured her. "They took my card information without permission and charged over $56,000 without asking." That's theft," she said slowly, realization dawning. "Why aren't you pressing charges?" "Because they're family," I replied simply, the irony not lost on me. The very reason they felt entitled to take advantage of me was also what prevented me from pursuing legal action against them. Saturday brought a new crisis. My parents called to inform me that they couldn't pay the remaining hotel bill, which had reached nearly $15,000 with their room service charges and extended stay. "The hotel is threatening to call the police if we don't pay," my father said, his earlier anger replaced by panic. "You need to call them and authorize payment." "No, I don't," I replied firmly. "This is a situation you created. Then what are we supposed to do? We're stranded." I suggested they contact the American Embassy, which could provide emergency assistance to citizens abroad. I also reminded them that they could reach out to friends or other family members for help, just as they had done with me countless times before. "No one else can afford to help us," my mother protested. "Neither could I pointed out. "The difference is you didn't give me a choice." Later that day, Natalie escalated her social media campaign. She posted a public Instagram story that began with her crying into the camera, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "I never thought my own sister would abandon us in a foreign country," she sobbed. "Madison has always resented me because our parents loved me more. Now she's getting her revenge by freezing the card she promised we could use for this trip." The blatant lie stunned me. I had never promised they could use my card. They had taken the information without my knowledge, much less my consent. But Natalie's followers wouldn't know that, and judging by the supportive comments, many believed her version of events. Several of my colleagues saw Natalie's posts, creating an awkward situation at work. My boss pulled me aside on Friday afternoon, concern evident in her expression. "Madison, is everything all right? There are some concerning posts circulating about you." I gave her a brief, professional explanation of the situation, emphasizing that I was handling it and it wouldn't affect my work performance. She seemed satisfied but advised me to consider speaking with HR if the situation impacted my workplace environment. Throughout this public drama, I received unexpected support from friends who saw through the manipulation. Rebecca sent flowers to my office with a note reading, "Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary." Jasmine invited me to dinner Saturday night, providing a much-needed respite from the constant stress. Despite this support, the emotional impact was severe. I experienced anxiety attacks several times, my chest tightening until breathing became difficult. Sleep remained elusive, and when I did manage to drift off, nightmares jolted me awake. The physical symptoms of stress accumulated: headaches, fatigue, loss of appetite. By Saturday afternoon, I called my therapist for an emergency session. Over video chat, she helped me process the overwhelming emotions and reinforced that setting boundaries, even painful ones, was not only appropriate but necessary. "What you're experiencing is the backfire effect," she explained. "When you change a long-established dynamic, those who benefited from the old arrangement will resist fiercely. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're disrupting a system that worked for them at your expense." Her words helped me prepare for the inevitable in-person confrontation when my family returned. They would be angry, hurt, and defensive. They would try every manipulation technique that had worked in the past. My challenge would be remaining firm in my boundaries while managing my own emotional responses. Sunday brought news that my parents had used an emergency credit card they kept for dire situations to book economy flights home. They would arrive Monday afternoon. The reckoning was approaching, and I needed to be ready. Sunday became preparation day. I cleared my schedule for Monday afternoon and evening, knowing the confrontation would require my full attention and energy. I organized financial evidence, printouts of every unauthorized charge, a timeline of events, and a summary of the total financial impact on my savings and future plans. I also prepared my apartment, clearing the dining table for our discussion and ensuring the space felt neutral and calm. The physical preparations helped channel my anxiety into productive action. My support system stood ready. Rebecca promised to call at specific intervals to check on me, while Jasmine would remain on standby in case I needed immediate assistance. My therapist had provided strategies for maintaining emotional boundaries during difficult conversations. Mentally, I rehearsed key points I needed to communicate. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about accountability and future expectations. I practiced breathing exercises to stay centered and prepare responses to likely manipulation attempts. Monday morning, I went to work early to complete urgent tasks before taking the afternoon off. By noon, I was back home, changing into comfortable clothes and setting up water and simple snacks on the table. The financial documents were arranged neatly beside 3 copies of a repayment agreement I had drafted with guidance from a legal consultant. At 2:17 p.m., the doorbell rang. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door to find my parents and Natalie standing there, looking tired and disheveled from their journey. My father's expression was thunderous, my mother's tearful, and Natalie's sullen. Without waiting for an invitation, they pushed past me into the apartment. "I hope you're satisfied," my father began immediately. "You've ruined what should have been a beautiful family vacation." A vacation charged to my credit card without my permission, I reminded him calmly. "Please sit down. We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," Natalie snapped. "You've made your feelings perfectly clear." "Actually, I haven't," I replied. "That's why we're having this conversation now. Please sit." Reluctantly, they took seats at the dining table. I remained standing, gathering my thoughts before beginning with the statement I had prepared. "What happened over the past week represents a serious breach of trust," I began. "You took my credit card information without permission and charged over $56,000 for a luxury vacation without my knowledge or consent. When I discovered the charges and tried to contact you, you ignored me for days. When I finally reached you, you dismissed my concerns and continued spending. These actions have damaged our relationship in ways that will take time to repair." My father attempted to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Please let me finish. I've listened to your perspective for days. Now it's my turn to speak." I presented the evidence methodically. The original charges, the additional expenses after I had asked them to stop, the total amount, and the impact on my financial security. I outlined the history of previous loans that had never been repaid, totaling over $15,000 in the past 3 years alone. "What you did constitutes credit card fraud," I explained. "Legally, I could report this to the authorities, which could result in criminal charges. I don't want to do that, but I need you to understand the seriousness of your actions." My father's face reddened. "Are you threatening us? Your own family?" "I'm stating facts," I corrected him, "and offering a solution that doesn't involve legal consequences." I placed the repayment agreement in front of each of them. This outlines a payment plan to reimburse the full amount over the next 3 years. It also establishes clear boundaries for our financial relationship moving forward. My mother pushed the paper away without reading it. "We can't possibly pay this much monthly. We don't have the money." "You had the money to spend it," I pointed out. "Now you need to find the money to repay it." "This is ridiculous," Natalie interjected. "You're acting like we're criminals. Taking someone's credit card information without permission and charging $56,000 is criminal behavior," I replied evenly. "The fact that we're family doesn't change that." The conversation continued in circles, with my family alternating between anger, dismissal, and emotional manipulation. My father attempted to dominate the discussion through volume and intimidation, tactics that had worked in the past. This time, I remained calm and redirected the conversation back to the central issues each time they tried to derail it. After nearly an hour of heated discussion, a subtle shift occurred. My mother, who had been watching me carefully, seemed to register something new in my demeanor. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" she asked quietly. "Yes, I am," I confirmed. "This isn't going away, and I'm not backing down." My father, sensing the change in momentum, switched tactics. "What happens if we don't sign this agreement? Are you really going to take legal action against your own parents?" The question hung in the air between us. It was the moment of truth, for them and for me. Would I follow through, or would I cave as I had so many times before? "Yes," I said simply. "If necessary, I will. I hope it doesn't come to that." The silence that followed was profound. For perhaps the first time, they were seeing me not as compliant, reliable Madison who would always put their needs first, but as an adult with boundaries who was prepared to enforce them. Natalie was the first to break. "I can sell the clothes and bags I bought," she offered, her voice small. "They're still new with tags." It wasn't a full acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but it was a start. A recognition that actions have consequences, and that she had some responsibility in making amends. My father still resisted, but my mother reached for the agreement and began reading it carefully. "The monthly payment is too high," she said. "We can't manage this amount." "Then let's discuss what you can manage," I replied, opening the door to negotiation while maintaining the core requirement. They would repay the debt. Over the next 2 hours, we hammered out terms that were challenging but feasible. My parents surrendered the jewelry they had purchased in Paris as partial repayment. Natalie agreed to sell the luxury items from the trip and contribute the proceeds immediately. The remaining balance would be paid in monthly installments over 4 years instead of 3, with the possibility of adjusting the timeline if their financial situation improved. The most difficult term for them to accept was my requirement that we attend family counseling sessions. "We don't need therapy," my father insisted. "We need to put this behind us and move on." "This situation didn't happen in isolation," I explained. "It's the result of long-standing patterns in our relationship. If we don't address those patterns, we'll end up right back here eventually." Eventually, they agreed to 6 sessions, with the possibility of continuing if beneficial. It was a compromise, but one I could accept as a starting point. By the time they left my apartment that evening, we had signed a revised agreement and scheduled our first counseling appointment. The atmosphere remained tense, but beneath the discomfort, I sensed a fundamental shift. For the first time in our relationship, I had established a boundary and held firm despite their resistance. Whatever came next, that change was significant and irreversible. As I closed the door behind them, exhaustion washed over me. The confrontation had been every bit as difficult as anticipated, but I had remained true to myself throughout. That alone felt like victory. 3 months passed, bringing gradual changes to our family dynamic. The first repayment installments arrived on time, transferred directly to my account as agreed. While the amount was modest compared to the total debt, the consistency represented a step toward accountability. Our family therapy sessions revealed deeper issues than I had anticipated. Under the guidance of Dr. Bennett, a family therapist specializing in financial conflicts, we began exploring the patterns that had led to the Paris incident. My parents reluctantly acknowledged their history of favoritism toward Natalie, though they framed it as responding to different needs rather than preferential treatment. Madison always seemed so self-sufficient, my mother explained during our 3rd session. Natalie needed more support. "Did you ever consider that I appeared self-sufficient because I had no other choice?" I asked. "That I learned early on that asking for help wasn't an option for me?" These conversations were painful but necessary, bringing to light assumptions and expectations that had shaped our relationships for decades. Progress was slow and inconsistent, with breakthroughs followed by setbacks, but the overall trajectory was positive. Meanwhile, I implemented new financial safeguards to prevent future exploitation. I froze my credit with all 3 major bureaus, set up alerts for any new account openings, and changed all my passwords and security questions. I created a separate account specifically for family emergencies, with strict guidelines for its use and a limited balance that wouldn't devastate me if depleted. At work, my focus returned, and with it, my performance improved. The client presentation that had suffered during the crisis was rescheduled and executed flawlessly, resulting in a multi-year contract. My boss noted the change, commenting that I seemed more confident, somehow. More assertive. She was right. Standing up to my family had strengthened muscles I hadn't known I possessed. The experience of setting boundaries and holding firm despite emotional pressure had transferred to other areas of my life. In meetings, I spoke up more readily. With clients, I negotiated more effectively. The woman who had always put others first was learning to advocate for herself. Natalie showed small but significant signs of growth. She found part-time work at a marketing agency, providing some stability to her previously erratic income. She began tracking her expenses in a budgeting app one recommended, occasionally texting me with questions about financial management. These changes weren't dramatic transformations, but they represented movement in a healthier direction. My parents struggled more with the new dynamic. Years of established patterns don't change easily, and they often slipped into old habits of expectation and entitlement. During our 5th therapy session, my father admitted, "It's hard to see Madison differently. She's always been our rock, the one who could handle anything." "That's a heavy burden to place on a child," Dr. Bennett observed, "and an unfair one to maintain with an adult." My relationship with extended family evolved as well. Some relatives, like my cousin Taylor, gained new respect for me after hearing the full story. Others, particularly those who had benefited from similar dynamics in their own relationships, distanced themselves. I found I didn't miss their presence as much as I had expected. In their place, my friendships deepened. Rebecca, Jasmine, and other friends who had supported me through the crisis became a chosen family of sorts. Our connections, based on mutual respect and reciprocity, provided the emotional support I had always sought from my biological family. Perhaps most surprisingly, I began dating again after a 2-year hiatus, focused on career advancement. I met Daniel, a software engineer, at a friend's dinner party. Unlike previous relationships where I had fallen into a caretaker role, this connection felt balanced from the beginning. When I eventually shared the Paris story with him, his response was refreshingly straightforward. "They were wrong, and you were brave to stand up to them." The ongoing healing process wasn't linear. Some days brought progress, while others triggered old patterns and pain. I continued individual therapy alongside our family sessions, working through the childhood experiences that had shaped my people-pleasing tendencies and need for approval. Gradually, I learned to expect respect rather than seek approval. I became more attuned to the subtle signs of manipulation and developed healthier responses. The guilt that had initially accompanied my boundary setting diminished, replaced by a quiet confidence in my right to protect myself. The financial aspect of recovery proceeded according to plan. By the 3-month mark, approximately $12,000 had been repaid through the sale of luxury items and monthly installments. The debt remained substantial, but the consistent repayment represented an important shift in accountability. Looking back on the entire experience, several critical lessons emerged with clarity. Love without respect isn't really love. For years, I had accepted a family dynamic that demanded my support while disregarding my boundaries. True love includes respect for autonomy and limitations. Setting boundaries is an act of self-care, not cruelty. By allowing my family to exploit my resources, I had enabled behavior that was ultimately harmful to all of us. Drawing the line wasn't punitive, it was necessary for healthier relationships. Financial independence includes protecting your resources. My success meant little if I couldn't defend it from exploitation. Learning to say no to financial demands was as important as earning the money in the first place. Family healing requires honesty, not enabling. Our therapy sessions were uncomfortable but essential, bringing to light patterns that had remained unexamined for decades. Without that honesty, no genuine healing could occur. The hardest conversations are often the most necessary. Confronting my family about their betrayal was excruciating, but it opened the door to a more authentic relationship. Avoiding difficult conversations only preserves dysfunctional patterns. This journey isn't complete. 3 months represents only the beginning of what will likely be years of adjustment and growth. Some days I still doubt myself, questioning whether I was too harsh or not firm enough. But beneath those occasional doubts lies a newfound confidence in my worth and my right to set boundaries. I'm proud of the strength I discovered through this ordeal. Standing firm against lifelong patterns of exploitation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Not just for my financial health, but for my emotional well-being and the long-term health of our family relationships. I hold hope for authentic connections built on mutual respect, both within my family and beyond it. The path forward may not be smooth, but it's leading towards something more genuine than what came before. If there's one final wisdom I would share, it's this: measure love by actions, not words. Anyone can claim to love you, but true love manifests in respect for your boundaries, consideration for your well-being, and accountability when harm occurs. Accept nothing less from family or anyone else. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? What helped you stay strong when they pushed back? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Remember that protecting your boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey helps you navigate your own path with courage and self-respect. I am Rachel Mitchell, 34 years old, and the youngest FBI director in American history. My brother Kevin and I grew up in the same house, but ended up on very different paths in law enforcement. That night, racing down Route 16 toward a critical hostage situation involving Senator Campbell's daughter, I never expected to see flashing lights in my rearview mirror. I certainly never imagined my own brother would pull a gun on me while I was trying to save a life. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment about where you are watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you have ever been misunderstood by family. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. Growing up in Boston, my brother Kevin and I were raised in a household where law enforcement was practically a religion. Our father, Richard Mitchell, served as police chief for 20 years, and our mother, Elizabeth, worked as a district attorney. Dinner conversations revolved around cases, criminals, and the justice system. There was never any question about what career path we would take. The only question was which branch of law enforcement would claim us. Kevin is 5 years older than me, and as kids, that age gap felt like a canyon. He was always the protector, the one who taught me how to ride a bike, how to throw a punch, and how to spot a liar. I idolized him despite his struggles in school. While academics came naturally to me, Kevin fought for every B and C he earned. Not everyone needs straight A's to make a difference, Rach, my father would say, ruffling Kevin's hair. Some of the best cops I know barely passed high school. Still, I saw the flash of hurt in Kevin's eyes whenever my report cards went up on the refrigerator while his stayed tucked away in his desk drawer. By 18, Kevin had followed in our father's footsteps, joining the police academy straight out of high school. Dad beamed with pride at his graduation, clapping Kevin on the back and presenting him with grandfather's service revolver. Mitchell men have always been cops, Dad said. And damn good ones. I was 13 then, already mapping out a different path. Law enforcement, yes, but not walking a beat. I wanted more. Harvard acceptance came at 17, followed by Harvard Law at 21. While Kevin patrolled the streets of our hometown, I interned at the Justice Department. The first real fracture between us came when I was recruited by the FBI at 25. Kevin had been on the force for 7 years by then, still working the same beat, his promotion to detective delayed twice. The FBI? Kevin scoffed when I announced the news at Sunday dinner. Pretty fancy. Guess walking a beat is beneath the family genius. Kevin, Mom warned. No, it is fine, I said, trying to keep the peace. The FBI just fits my skill set better. Your skill set? Kevin repeated, stabbing at his pot roast. Right. Dad tried to smooth things over. We are proud of both our kids. Different paths, same goal, right? But the die was cast. As my career accelerated, Kevin seemed to stall. I moved through the ranks at the bureau while Kevin finally made detective after 9 years. Each of my promotions widened the gulf between us. Deputy Assistant Director at 30. Assistant Director at 32. And then, the bombshell. Director of the FBI at 34, the youngest in history. The night I shared that news at my parents' house was the last time I had spoken to Kevin until that fateful night on Route 16. Director, Kevin had said, his voice flat. You're kidding. The president called me personally, I said, unable to hide my pride. Of course he did, Kevin muttered. The golden child gets another gold star. Dad raised his glass. To Rachel. Always knew you would do something extraordinary. That was when Kevin threw his napkin down and stood up. Always knew she would, but never thought I would. Is that it, Dad? Son. That is not what I meant. But Kevin was already heading for the door. Congrats, sis. Hope running the whole damn FBI makes you happy. 6 months passed without a word between us. I sent Christmas and birthday cards that received no response. Mom kept me updated on Kevin's life. Still a detective, recently divorced from his wife of 3 years, working too much. And that brings me to the night in question. Senator Campbell's 20-year-old daughter, Abigail, had been kidnapped by a group with a political vendetta against her father. My team had tracked them to an abandoned farm in rural Massachusetts, but our intelligence indicated a 4-hour window before they would move her or worse. I was heading to the staging area when I entered Kevin's jurisdiction purely by coincidence. The mission was classified at the highest level. Few outside my immediate team knew about it. Media blackout, need to know basis only. Every minute mattered if we were going to bring Abigail home alive. So when I saw those flashing lights in my rearview mirror, I nearly ignored them. But years of law enforcement training kicked in, and I pulled over, expecting to flash my credentials and be on my way within 30 seconds. I had no idea I was about to come face to face with my brother for the first time in 6 months. I had no idea he would point his service weapon at my face. And I certainly had no idea how this encounter would change both our lives forever. I guided my unmarked black Suburban to the shoulder of Route 16, gravel crunching under the tires. The road was deserted at this hour, just after midnight, with nothing but dense forest on either side. My headlights illuminated the mist rising from the asphalt, creating an almost supernatural glow. In my rearview mirror, the red and blue lights pulsed hypnotically. 3 minutes, I muttered to myself, checking my watch. That was all I could spare before getting back on track to save Abigail Campbell. I watched as the officer emerged from the patrol car, flashlight in hand. Standard procedure. I had my FBI credentials ready on the dashboard, prepared for a quick exchange. As the beam of light swept through my rear window, I rolled down the driver's side window, fixing a pleasant but authoritative expression on my face. The flashlight beam hit my face directly, momentarily blinding me. License and registration, came the voice, and my blood froze. I knew that voice. Had known it my entire life. As the light lowered, I found myself staring into the face of my brother Kevin. He had not recognized the vehicle. But now recognition dawned in his eyes, followed immediately by something harder to define. Surprise? Anger? Both? Rachel, he said, his professional demeanor slipping momentarily. Kevin. I replied, keeping my voice steady. I am in the middle of an emergency situation. I need to get back on the road immediately. Instead of stepping back, Kevin's posture stiffened. You were doing 88 in a 55. Emergency or not, that is dangerous driving. I am aware of my speed. I am the director of the FBI en route to a critical situation involving national security. I do not have time for this. Kevin's jaw tightened. The mention of my title seemed to flip a switch inside him. The director of the FBI still has to obey traffic laws. License and registration, please. I took a deep breath. Kevin, I am invoking federal emergency protocol here. There is a life at stake. Every minute counts. License and registration, he repeated. His face now a mask of professional detachment that I recognized all too well from our father. Realizing this was not going to be the quick interaction I had hoped for, I reached for my credentials. Here is my FBI identification. I am requesting professional courtesy as a fellow law enforcement officer. I need to be at my destination in less than 30 minutes. Kevin took the credentials, studying them with exaggerated care. You think this badge makes you special, Rachel? Makes you above the law? The words stung more than they should have. This is not about being special. This is about a time-sensitive operation that I need to oversee personally. Step out of the vehicle, please. Kevin, this is ridiculous. You know who I am. Step out of the vehicle now. He repeated, and this time his hand moved to rest on his holstered weapon. I felt a surge of anger but kept my voice level. I am going to reach for my phone to call my team. They can verify the urgency of this situation. Hands where I can see them. Kevin barked, and to my shock, he drew his weapon, pointing it directly at me. For a moment, I could not process what was happening. My own brother, pointing a gun at my face. Over a speeding ticket. Kevin, put the gun down. This is not protocol for a traffic stop, and you know it. Exit the vehicle with your hands visible, he said, his voice cold and professional, as if I were a dangerous suspect rather than his sister. Recognizing the dangerous territory we were in, I complied, slowly opening the door and stepping out with my hands raised. This is a massive overreaction, and you know it. I am unarmed and identifying myself as a federal agent. Turn around and place your hands on the vehicle. Kevin, listen to me. Senator Campbell's daughter has been kidnapped. We have reliable intelligence that she will be moved or killed in the next few hours. I need to get to the staging area now. For a moment, I thought I saw hesitation in his eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by that hard look I had seen at our last family dinner. Sounds like a convenient story. Turn around. I turned, placing my hands on the hood of my SUV. You are making a huge mistake. I felt the cold metal of handcuffs snap around my wrists, and disbelief washed over me. This could not be happening. Not with Abigail Campbell's life in the balance. Kevin, think about what you are doing, I said, my voice low and urgent. This is not about us or our issues. This is about a 20-year-old girl whose life depends on my team getting to her in time. You always did think you were better than everyone else, Kevin said, his voice so quiet I almost missed it. Always the star, always the special one. In that moment, I realized this had nothing to do with traffic laws or proper procedure. This was years of resentment boiling over at the worst possible moment. This is not the time or place for a family therapy session, I said through gritted teeth. A girl's life is at stake. National security is at stake. National security. Kevin repeated with a humorless laugh. Right. He turned me around, and for the first time in 6 months, we faced each other directly. My brother's face was harder than I remembered. New lines around his eyes, a gray streak at his temple that had not been there before. I am going to search your vehicle now, he said, professional mask back in place. You need a warrant for that, I said automatically. Not when I have probable cause. You claim to be on an emergency mission involving a kidnapping. That implies weapons. Possibly explosive material. I need to verify that. Kevin, this is insane. You know who I am. I know who you say you are, he corrected. For all I know, you stole that ID and vehicle. The Rachel Mitchell I know would not be driving recklessly through my jurisdiction without so much as a courtesy call. The situation was spiraling beyond my control. I needed to get word to my team, to let them know I had been delayed. I need to make a call. My team is expecting me. You can make all the calls you want once we get to the station, Kevin said, guiding me toward his patrol car. The station? Kevin, there is no time for this. Call my office if you do not believe me. Call the Attorney General. Call the White House, for God's sake. But Kevin was not listening. He secured me in the back of his patrol car like a common criminal, then returned to search my government vehicle. I watched through the window as he rifled through my briefcase, finding the classified documents inside, the secure satellite phone, my service weapon. Each minute that passed was another minute Abigail Campbell might not have. I closed my eyes, trying to control my racing thoughts. This was a nightmare of the highest order, professional and personal worlds colliding in the worst possible way. I heard Kevin radio for backup, describing a suspicious federal vehicle and requesting assistance. The situation was escalating from ridiculous to dangerous. If local police swarmed the area, it could compromise not just my timeline, but potentially the entire operation. All because my brother could not see past our family drama long enough to do his job properly. The next 20 minutes were among the most excruciating of my life. Handcuffed in the back of Kevin's patrol car, I watched as he meticulously cataloged the contents of my vehicle, examining each item with exaggerated care. The classified documents were spread across the hood of my Suburban, my service weapon bagged as if it were evidence in a crime. Those documents are classified, Kevin, I called through the closed window. You do not have clearance to read them. He ignored me, continuing his search. 2 more patrol cars arrived. Officers approaching with hands near their weapons, clearly responding to Kevin's call about a suspicious federal agent. I recognized one of them, Officer Mendez, who had attended the police academy with Kevin. Mitchell, what have you got? Mendez asked, eyeing me curiously through the window. Suspicious individual claiming to be FBI Director Rachel Mitchell, Kevin replied, as if I were some random imposter rather than his own sister. Driving erratically. Carrying classified documents and weapons. That is the director, Mendez said, recognition dawning on his face. I saw her on CNN last month. Kevin shrugged. Says she is on some emergency mission. Convenient excuse for doing 90 on Route 16. I leaned forward, pressing my face to the window. Officer Mendez, this is a matter of national security. I need to reach my team immediately. Mendez looked uncertainly between Kevin and me. Maybe we should call this in, Kev. If she is really the director, go ahead and call it in. Kevin said dismissively. Meanwhile, I will continue processing this scene by the book. Another patrol car arrived, bringing the total to 4. The lights from all the vehicles created a disorienting strobe effect in the darkness of the rural road. My thoughts kept returning to Abigail Campbell, to the ticking clock. How much time had been lost already? 20 minutes? 30? My satellite phone began ringing from inside the evidence bag Kevin had placed it in. My team. No doubt wondering why I had not arrived at the staging area. Kevin glanced at it, then deliberately set it aside. Kevin. I shouted through the glass. That call could be life or death for a kidnapping victim. For a moment, our eyes met through the window. I saw something flicker across his face. Doubt, perhaps. Then his radio crackled. All units be advised, FBI operation in progress in Sector 7. Kidnapping response, possible hostage situation at the Old Hargrove Farm. Federal jurisdiction, local assistance requested. It was the call about my operation being broadcast on the local police band. Kevin froze, listening to the details that confirmed everything I had been telling him. I watched his face, waiting for the moment of realization, the admission that he had made a terrible mistake. Instead, he turned the radio down and continued his methodical search of my vehicle. Kevin, you just heard the confirmation. I shouted. This is the operation I have been trying to tell you about. One of the other officers approached him. Mitchell, that FBI call, is this related? She claims it is, Kevin replied, still not looking at me. But protocol is protocol. We verify identities before releasing suspects. Suspects? I repeated incredulously. I am the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not a suspect. The absurdity of the situation would have been almost comical if a young woman's life were not hanging in the balance. I closed my eyes, trying to center myself. Getting angry at Kevin would not help Abigail Campbell. I needed to find a way out of the situation, and fast. Through the window, I could hear snippets of conversation among the officers. They were questioning Kevin's handling of the situation, becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the idea that they might be detaining the actual FBI director during an active operation. Mitchell, maybe we should just verify her identity and let her go. One officer suggested. And if she is an imposter? Kevin countered. If she has stolen classified documents? If this is some kind of security breach? You want to take that responsibility? My satellite phone rang again. This time, Kevin picked it up, looking at the display. Assistant Director Callahan, he read aloud. My second in command, undoubtedly wondering where I was. Answer it, I called. Let me speak to him. He can confirm everything. Kevin hesitated, then set the phone down without answering. The ringing stopped. Inside the patrol car, I shifted uncomfortably, the handcuffs digging into my wrists. Memories from childhood flashed through my mind. Kevin hiding my homework before a big test. Kevin telling my prom date I had a contagious skin condition. Kevin always finding ways to undermine me when it mattered most. But this was different. This was not childish rivalry. This was deliberate sabotage of a federal operation. Through the windshield, I could see more headlights approaching. A larger vehicle, moving fast. Not another patrol car. An SUV similar to mine. Black with government plates. My team had come looking for me. Hope surged within me, only to be crushed as I watched Kevin direct the vehicle to stop at a distance, preventing whoever was inside from approaching. More minutes lost in this ridiculous standoff. The radio crackled again. All units in vicinity of Route 16, be advised. Captain Harris is en route to your location. ETA 3 minutes. Kevin's posture changed subtly at this news. Captain Harris was his superior officer, a 20-year veteran of the force known for his by-the-book approach and intolerance for mistakes. I allowed myself a small smile. Perhaps this farce was about to end. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. I could see the FBI vehicle in the distance, agents inside prevented from approaching by the police perimeter Kevin had established. My satellite phone rang again, and again Kevin ignored it. Then another set of headlights appeared, and a police cruiser pulled up. The door opened, and Captain Thomas Harris stepped out, his expression grim as he surveyed the scene, multiple patrol cars, lights flashing, officers standing awkwardly around my vehicle with its contents spread across the hood, and me handcuffed in the back of Kevin's car. Detective Mitchell, Harris called, his voice carrying in the night air. Report. What the hell is going on here? Kevin straightened, adopting a professional stance. Traffic stop, sir. Driver was doing nearly 90. Claims to be FBI Director Mitchell on an emergency mission. I am verifying her identity and searching for contraband. Harris frowned, approaching Kevin. And the subject is where? Kevin gestured toward the patrol car. Secured in my vehicle, sir. Harris peered through the window at me, and I straightened as much as the handcuffs would allow, meeting his gaze directly. The color drained from his face. Jesus Christ. Captain Harris breathed, staring at me through the window. He turned to Kevin, his expression a mixture of horror and disbelief. Detective, is this who I think it is? Kevin maintained his professional demeanor. Subject claims to be FBI Director Rachel Mitchell. I am in the process of verifying that claim. Harris's eyes widened. He looked back at me, then at Kevin again. Mitchell, open this door right now. Kevin hesitated. Sir, protocol dictates. Open the goddamn door. Harris barked, an edge of panic in his voice. Kevin complied, unlocking the door. Harris leaned in, his eyes scanning my face. Recognition dawned, followed by something approaching terror. "Ma'am," he stuttered, "Director of the FBI." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Around us, the other officers froze, realization spreading across their faces like a wave. "Captain Harris," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the fury coursing through me, "I would appreciate being uncuffed immediately. I am in the middle of a time-sensitive operation involving a kidnapped civilian." Harris spun toward Kevin. "Uncuff her?" "No." Kevin moved mechanically, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. As he leaned into the car with the handcuff key, our eyes met briefly. I saw the moment it all crashed down on him, what he had done, who he had done it to, and what it might mean for his career. The cuffs fell away, and I rubbed my wrists, stepping out of the patrol car with as much dignity as I could muster. Captain Harris immediately snapped to attention and offered a formal salute. "Director Mitchell, please accept my deepest apologies for this inexcusable situation," Harris said, his voice still shaking slightly. "If there is anything we can do to assist you." I straightened my jacket, regaining my composure. "As a matter of fact, there is. Senator Campbell's daughter has been kidnapped. My team has tracked her to an abandoned farm approximately 15 miles from here. Time is critical. I need these roadblocks cleared immediately, and I would appreciate a police escort to the location." Harris nodded vigorously. "Of course, Director. Right away." He turned to the assembled officers. "Clear these vehicles." "No." "And get a lead car ready for escort." The officers scrambled to comply, avoiding eye contact with me as they rushed back to their patrol cars. Kevin remained rooted to the spot, his face ashen. "Detective Mitchell," Harris snapped, "collect the director's belongings and return them immediately." Kevin moved woodenly to gather my documents, weapon, and phone from where he had spread them out. As he handed them back to me, I could see the tremble in his hands. "Rachel," he began in a low voice. "Not now," I cut him off, my voice ice cold. "A young woman's life is at stake." I turned to Harris. "Captain, I need to brief my team. We will be ready to move out in 3 minutes." "Yes, ma'am," Harris replied, still visibly shaken. He turned to Kevin. "Detective Mitchell, report back to the station immediately. We will discuss this incident later." Kevin's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." I walked briskly to my vehicle, not sparing Kevin another glance. Inside, I immediately called Assistant Director Callahan. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded when he picked up. "We have been trying to reach you for 40 minutes. Local police complication," I replied tersely. "I am en route now with escort." "Status on the target?" "Still at the location according to thermal imaging. But we are picking up increased activity. They may be preparing to move. Tell the tactical team to hold position. I will be there in 10 minutes. I started the engine, watching in the rearview mirror as Kevin slowly made his way back to his patrol car. He stood there for a moment, watching me, the weight of what he had done visible in the slump of his shoulders. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction at his evident distress. A larger part was too focused on the mission ahead to care about family drama. But the smallest part, the part that remembered us as children, felt a pang of sympathy. Kevin had just committed career suicide, and we both knew it. The police escort assembled, lights flashing, and I pulled out onto Route 16, accelerating quickly. In my rearview mirror, I could see Kevin's patrol car growing smaller, my brother standing beside it, a diminishing figure in the distance. I pushed thoughts of him aside. Abigail Campbell needed me focused and clear-headed. The clock was ticking, and thanks to Kevin, we had precious little time left. As we sped toward the abandoned farm, I calculated the damage done. 40 minutes lost. Operational security potentially compromised by Kevin's radio calls. The element of surprise diminished. Captain Harris led the escort personally, his lights and siren clearing the way ahead. I could only imagine the conversation he would have with Kevin later. Police officers detaining federal agents without cause was bad enough. Detaining the FBI director during a critical operation? That was the kind of mistake careers did not survive. My satellite phone rang again. Callahan with an update. Director. Thermal imaging shows 3 heat signatures with the hostage. 2 at the front of the building, 1 with Abigail in what appears to be a root cellar. Understood. Maintain position. I will be there shortly to authorize the breach. I ended the call, pressing my foot harder on the accelerator. The farm was just minutes away now. My mind shifted fully into operational mode, pushing aside all thoughts of Kevin and his betrayal. That was a problem for tomorrow. Abigail Campbell was the problem for tonight, and I would not let her down, no matter what personal drama tried to get in the way. The abandoned Hargrove farm materialized out of the darkness, a collection of decrepit buildings surrounded by overgrown fields. From our staging position in a neighboring property, I could see the tactical team already in place, black-clad figures nearly invisible in the night. Captain Harris pulled his vehicle to a stop beside mine. Director Mitchell, my officers are at your disposal if you need additional support. Thank you, Captain, I replied, stepping out. If you could establish a perimeter at the access road, that would be helpful. We do not want anyone coming in or going out once we begin. Harris nodded, clearly eager to make amends for the earlier debacle. Consider it done. I approached the command vehicle where Assistant Director Callahan waited, his expression a mixture of relief and frustration. You are a sight for sore eyes, he said. What happened back there? Family issues, I replied tersely. Brief me on the current situation. If Callahan was curious about my cryptic response, he did not show it. 3 subjects inside, all former military with ties to extremist groups. They have issued demands to Senator Campbell. Vote against the upcoming defense bill or his daughter dies. The deadline is dawn. And Abigail? Alive, confined to what appears to be a root cellar or basement. 1 guard with her. 2 others rotating positions throughout the house. I studied the thermal imaging display, absorbing the layout of the property and the positions of the kidnappers. Weapons? Assault rifles. Handguns. Possibly explosives, though we have not confirmed that. I nodded, formulating a plan. We need to move now. The delay may have compromised our position. If they have been monitoring police frequencies, they heard the chatter about an FBI operation. Callahan frowned. Police chatter? What exactly happened on your way here? Later, I said, unwilling to delve into the Kevin situation. Tactical plan? 2 teams. Alpha approaches from the east, creates a diversion. Beta comes in from the west, directly to the cellar entrance we identified here. He pointed to a spot on the digital map. I studied the plan, considering the risks. With the delay caused by Kevin, the kidnappers might be more alert, more prepared for an assault. Standard procedure would be for me to remain at the command center, directing operations remotely. But nothing about this night had been standard. I am going in with Beta Team, I announced. Callahan stared at me. Director, with all due respect, that is highly irregular. So, is being detained by local police on the way to a hostage rescue, I replied. I need to be there. Abigail Campbell has been through enough tonight. Seeing a female face might help ease her trauma. It was a rationalization, and we both knew it. The truth was simpler, after being handcuffed and humiliated by my own brother. I needed to reassert control. I needed to be part of the action, not just directing it from afar. Callahan knew better than to argue. Yes, ma'am. I will have them prep gear for you. Within 10 minutes, I was outfitted in tactical gear, a Kevlar vest heavy over my suit, earpiece connecting me to the team. It had been years since I had participated directly in a field operation, but the training never really left you. Alpha team in position, came the voice through my earpiece. Beta team ready, followed immediately after. I took a deep breath, centering myself. Execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The night erupted into controlled chaos. Alpha Team set off flashbangs at the front of the farmhouse, creating the diversion we needed. Beta Team, with me in the middle of the formation, moved swiftly toward the cellar entrance. The first kidnapper appeared at the side door, rifle raised, responding to the commotion. Our point man took him down with a silenced shot before he could fire. Tango 1 neutralized, came the calm report. We reached the cellar doors, partially hidden by overgrown weeds. The team leader gestured for silence, then counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The doors burst open, and we descended into darkness. Night vision casting everything in an eerie green glow. The cellar was larger than expected, dirt floor giving way to concrete as we moved deeper. FBI called the team leader. Drop your weapons. A shot rang out, pinging off the wall beside us. The team scattered for cover as the second kidnapper fired wildly from behind a stack of old crates. I will kill her, he shouted. Stay back. Through my night vision, I could make out Abigail Campbell tied to a chair behind the gunman, her eyes wide with terror above the duct tape covering her mouth. You are surrounded, I called out, modulating my voice to project calm authority. There is no way out of this building that is not covered by FBI agents. Surrender now and no one else gets hurt. Who is that? The kidnapper demanded. Who is talking? I am FBI Director Rachel Mitchell, I replied. And I am here to bring Abigail home safely. The director, he sounded surprised, then laughed harshly. Well, that makes you a valuable hostage too, does it not? He shifted his position, trying to get a better angle on us. In doing so, he momentarily exposed his shoulder. The shot from our sniper was so quiet, it was almost inaudible. The kidnapper crumpled, his weapon clattering to the floor. Tango 2 down, came the report in my ear. Status of the hostage? I moved forward carefully, approaching Abigail. Ms. Campbell, I am Director Mitchell. You are safe now. We are going to get you out of here. Her eyes, still wide with fear, locked onto mine. I removed the duct tape as gently as possible from her mouth. The third man, she gasped immediately. He went upstairs when the noise started. As if on cue, my earpiece crackled. Tango 3 spotted exiting through the back. In pursuit. Get her out of here, I ordered the team leader, already turning toward the stairs. I am going to assist with the third subject. Director, that is not advisable, he began, but I was already moving. I ascended the cellar stairs quickly, emerging into the kitchen of the farmhouse. Through the windows, I could see flashlight beams cutting through the darkness as agents pursued the fleeing kidnapper. Then movement caught my eye. The third man had not fled after all. He had circled back, using the commotion as cover, and now stood in the doorway, weapon raised. Do not move, he snarled. I froze, my own sidearm halfway drawn from its holster. Slowly put your gun on the floor, he ordered. I complied, carefully setting my weapon down. So you are the director, he said, studying me. Thomas will be disappointed he missed this opportunity. Thomas, I questioned, trying to keep him talking while I assessed options. The man behind all this, he replied with a cold smile. He has big plans. This was just the beginning. Whatever you were planning. It is over now, I said calmly. Your associates are down. The hostage is safe. There is no scenario where you walk away from this. There is always a scenario, he countered, taking a step closer. I have the FBI director at gunpoint. That is quite a bargaining chip. I saw movement behind him, a shadow shifting position outside the window. Help was coming. But I needed to keep him distracted. You mentioned Thomas, I said. I would like to know more about him. The kidnapper smirked. You will be meeting him soon enough. He adjusted his grip on his weapon, and I knew he was preparing to fire. In that split second, I dropped to the floor just as the window behind him shattered. The shot from outside caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His own weapon discharged, the bullet striking the ceiling as he fell. I lunged for my discarded sidearm, grabbing it and aiming at the fallen kidnapper in one fluid motion. "Do not move," I ordered as agents poured through the door. He glared up at me, clutching his wounded shoulder. "This is not over." "For you, it is," I replied as agents secured him. The farmhouse was quickly filled with FBI personnel, securing the scene and gathering evidence. I stepped outside into the cool night air, suddenly aware of a burning sensation in my left shoulder. Looking down, I saw a tear in my jacket. The kidnapper's wild shot had grazed me after all. Adrenaline had masked the pain until now. A medic approached, noticing my injury. "Director, you are hit." "Just a graze," I said, though I allowed him to examine the wound. As he cleaned and bandaged my shoulder, I watched Abigail Campbell being escorted to a waiting ambulance, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She would be reunited with her father soon. Despite everything, despite Kevin's interference, despite my injury, the mission had succeeded. Captain Harris approached, hat in hand. "Director Mitchell, I cannot express how deeply sorry I am for what happened earlier. I assure you, there will be consequences." I nodded, too tired to discuss it further. "We will address it through proper channels, Captain. For now, I appreciate your assistance with the perimeter." "Of course, ma'am." He hesitated, then added, "Detective Mitchell has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation." Kevin. In the heat of the operation, I had almost forgotten about him. "Almost. I understand," I replied neutrally. As dawn broke over the Hargrove farm, news vans began to arrive, attracted by the police activity and rumors of a high-profile rescue. Senator Campbell's car pulled up, and I watched as Abigail ran to her father's arms. A successful mission, despite everything. But as I gave a brief statement to the press, careful to mention the cooperation of local law enforcement without going into the complications, I knew that the hardest part still lay ahead. Somehow, I had to deal with my brother and the damage he had done, not just to my operation, but to our already fractured relationship. 3 days after the Campbell rescue, I sat in a conference room at FBI headquarters, facing the Oversight Committee. My shoulder ached beneath my blazer, the bandage a constant reminder of how close the mission had come to disaster. "Director Mitchell," Senator Hargrove began. Consulting his notes, "Can you explain the 40-minute delay between your departure from headquarters and your arrival at the staging area? According to the timeline, you should have arrived much earlier." I had anticipated this question. The truth would mean throwing Kevin under the bus publicly, potentially ending his career. Despite everything. That gave me pause. There was an unforeseen complication with local law enforcement, I replied carefully. "A miscommunication that has since been addressed." "Miscommunication?" pressed Congressman Williams. "That seems vague, Director. We are talking about a critical time window in a high-profile kidnapping case. The matter is being handled internally between the FBI and the department in question," I said. "I take full responsibility for not allowing enough buffer time in the operational timeline." The committee members exchanged glances, clearly dissatisfied with my answer, but unwilling to push further for now. The rest of the hearing focused on the outcome: Abigail's successful rescue, the 3 kidnappers in custody, and the ongoing investigation into this Thomas figure they had mentioned. Afterward, Assistant Director Callahan caught up with me in the hallway. "You protected him," he said without preamble. "Your brother. You could have thrown him to the wolves in there." I kept walking, forcing him to keep pace. "It is a family matter. It is a professional matter when it interferes with a federal operation," Callahan countered. He held the FBI director at gunpoint, Rachel. "That is career suicide. And his career will be handled by his department," I replied. "Not by me in front of a congressional committee." Callahan shook his head. You are a better person than I would be in your shoes. I was not so sure about that. My decision had less to do with mercy and more to do with family complications I was not ready to air publicly. Besides, the doctor had ordered me to take a week of medical leave for my shoulder, and I had decided to spend it at my parents' house in Boston. The confrontation with Kevin was coming, but I would handle it on my terms, not in front of Congress. 2 days later, I was sitting in my parents' living room, arm in a sling, trying to explain to them what had happened without devastating them completely. "Kevin did what?" my mother exclaimed, her hand flying to her mouth in horror. My father sat in stunned silence, his face ashen. "He did not recognize me at first," I said, softening the truth slightly. "By the time he did, things had escalated. But to hold you at gunpoint? His own sister?" Mom shook her head in disbelief. "What was he thinking?" Dad finally spoke, his voice heavy. He was not thinking. He was reacting to years of competition. "Competition that he created in his own mind," I said, more sharply than I intended. "I never tried to overshadow him. I just did my job and excelled at it," Dad added quietly. While Kevin struggled. The doorbell rang, interrupting our painful conversation. Mom went to answer it, returning moments later with a tight expression. "It is Kevin," she said. A tense silence fell over the room. I had not expected him to show up here, though perhaps I should have. Where else would he go in a crisis but back to our parents? Kevin entered the living room, stopping short when he saw me. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, the defeat evident in his posture. "Rachel," he said, his voice rough. "I did not know you would be here." "Medical leave," I replied, gesturing to my bandaged shoulder. His eyes widened. "You were injured? During the operation?" "Yes." After I was finally allowed to get there. The accusation hung in the air between us. Kevin looked away first, sinking into an armchair across from me. "I came to talk to Mom and Dad," he said. "About what happened?" "About what is going to happen." "Which is?" I prompted. Kevin ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Internal Affairs is investigating. Captain Harris recommended termination, but the union is fighting for suspension instead. Either way, my detective shield is gone. If I stay, it will be back in uniform, probably directing traffic somewhere no one will have to look at me." Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Kevin had worked hard for that detective badge, whatever his failings. "I am sorry it came to this," I said, and meant it. Kevin let out a bitter laugh. "Are you? You could end my career with one phone call. One statement to Internal Affairs about what really happened. If I wanted to do that, I would have done it already," I pointed out. "I did not mention you by name to the Oversight Committee today." Surprise flickered across his face. "Why not?" "Because this is not about your career." "Kevin, it never was. This is about you and me and whatever broke between us a long time ago." Our parents sat in uncomfortable silence, witnesses to a confrontation years in the making. "What broke between us?" Kevin repeated slowly. "You want to know what broke, Rachel? Everything came easy to you. Everything. School, college, career. Dad's approval. Mom's pride. All of it. Just handed to you on a silver platter." "Nothing was handed to me," I shot back, anger finally breaking through my professional facade. "I worked for everything I achieved. The difference is, I did not spend all my energy resenting you for your successes." "What successes?" Kevin demanded. "Being a small-town detective while my little sister becomes the youngest FBI director in history? Living in Dad's shadow while you cast an even bigger one?" "That is not fair, Kevin," Dad interjected. "We have always been proud of both of you." "Bullshit," Kevin said bluntly. "You compare us constantly." "Always have. Why can't you be more like Rachel?" Rachel got straight as again. "Rachel this, Rachel that. So that justifies holding a gun to my face?" I demanded. "Jeopardizing a young woman's life? Handcuffing me in front of your colleagues? Was humiliating me worth risking your entire career?" Kevin's face crumpled. No, he admitted quietly. It was not. When I pulled you over, I did not know it was you at first. Then when I realized, something just snapped. All those years of resentment came flooding out, and I could not stop myself. You could have stopped at any point, I said. When I showed you my credentials. When I explained the situation. When the radio confirmed the operation. You chose not to. I know, he whispered. I know. Mom wiped away tears. What happens now? To both of you. Kevin and I looked at each other across the living room, years of competition and miscommunication between us. I do not know. I admitted. This is not something that gets fixed in one conversation. I am seeing a therapist, Kevin said suddenly. Started yesterday. The department required it, but I think I needed it anyway. To figure out why I did what I did. Why I have been so angry all these years. It was a small step, but a significant one for someone as proud as my brother. That is good, I said cautiously. It might help. Rachel, he said, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. I am sorry. Not just for the other night, but for a lot of things. Years of things. The apology hung in the air between us, inadequate yet necessary. I appreciate that, I said finally. But Kevin, you need to understand something. What you did wasn't just about us. It wasn't just sibling rivalry gone too far. You compromised a federal operation. You risked a civilian's life. That goes beyond family drama. I know, he said, dropping his gaze. I have to live with that. Dad cleared his throat. Maybe we all have things to answer for. Your mother and I, perhaps we did make comparisons we should not have. Set expectations that weren't fair. That does not excuse what I did, Kevin said. No, Dad agreed. But family patterns run deep. We all play our parts. The four of us sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of years of unspoken tensions filling the room. So what now? Mom asked again. I looked at my brother, this man I had grown up with, competed with, resented and been resented by. Despite everything, he was still my brother. Now, I said slowly, we start over. Not from the beginning. We can't erase what happened. But from here. From this moment. With honesty instead of competition. With understanding instead of resentment. Kevin nodded, a tentative hope in his eyes. I would like that. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. That would take time. But it was a beginning, a first step toward healing a relationship that had been broken for longer than either of us had been willing to admit. As for the professional consequences, those would play out as they must. Some things could not be undone, no matter how much we might wish otherwise. 6 months after that night, on Route 16, my shoulder had healed completely, leaving only a small scar as a reminder of how close things had come. In the wake of the incident, the FBI had implemented new protocols for agents in emergency transit, including better coordination with local law enforcement to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future. The professional consequences had been substantial but not catastrophic. Kevin had been suspended for 3 months without pay and demoted back to patrol officer. He would never make detective again in his current department, but he had kept his job, partly due to his union's intervention. Partly because I had indeed refrained from making a formal complaint about his conduct. On a personal level, the healing was slower but steady. I had started seeing a therapist myself, unpacking years of family dynamics that had contributed to the toxic competition between Kevin and me. It was uncomfortable work, forcing me to examine not just Kevin's resentment, but my own role in our dysfunctional relationship. Had I, perhaps, enjoyed outshining him? Had I sometimes flaunted my success, knowing it would hurt him? The honest answers weren't always flattering. Kevin and I had begun the delicate work of rebuilding our relationship, starting with a lunch at a neutral restaurant halfway between his apartment and my office. It had been awkward, conversation stilted, both of us carefully avoiding mention of that night while simultaneously unable to think of anything else. How's the new beat? I had asked, stirring my coffee. Quiet, he'd replied. Mostly residential. School crossings, parking violations. That's good. Quiet is good. He'd nodded, eyes on his plate. Rachel, You don't have to keep apologizing, I'd interrupted. We've been through that. I know. But I'm still processing everything. The therapist says that's normal. Mine says the same thing. His eyebrows had risen. You're seeing someone too? Professional trauma counseling is standard procedure after incidents like this, I'd said, falling back on bureaucratic language when emotions became too difficult. Then, forcing myself to be more genuine, I'd added, but yes, I'm working through some stuff too. Family stuff. That lunch had been the first of several cautious meetings. Each one became slightly easier. The conversation flowing more naturally as we established new patterns of interaction. We weren't close yet, might never be the way some siblings were, but we were finding a way forward. Today, I was attending a law enforcement conference in Boston where I had been invited to give the keynote address. I knew Kevin would be in the audience. I had sent him the invitation myself. A gesture of professional respect that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. As I stepped up to the podium, I scanned the crowded auditorium. Kevin sat in the middle, in uniform. His posture straight, but not tense. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Thank you all for being here today, I began. The title of my address is Integrated Response: Breaking Down Barriers Between Federal and Local Law Enforcement. It's a topic that has personal significance for me, as some of you may know. There was a ripple of knowing laughter. The incident with Kevin had never made the national news. Both our departments had worked to keep it quiet, but within law enforcement circles, rumors had circulated. I had decided to acknowledge it obliquely rather than pretend it never happened. In our line of work, we often talk about jurisdictional boundaries as if they're set in stone. Federal, state, local, we divide ourselves into neat categories. But criminals don't respect those boundaries, and sometimes neither should we. For the next 40 minutes, I spoke about the importance of cooperation, of communication, of mutual respect between different branches of law enforcement. I shared stories of successful joint operations, of lives saved when agencies work together seamlessly. The barriers we create, sometimes out of pride, sometimes out of territoriality, sometimes out of simple misunderstanding, can have real consequences, I continued. A delay of minutes can mean the difference between success and failure, between life and death. From my position at the podium, I could see Kevin listening intently, his expression thoughtful rather than defensive. Progress, small but meaningful. But breaking down these barriers isn't just about operational efficiency, I said, nearing the conclusion of my speech. It's about recognizing that beneath the different badges, the different uniforms, we share the same fundamental mission: to protect and serve. To do that effectively, we need to start seeing each other not as competitors or obstacles, but as allies. As I finished my address to enthusiastic applause, I felt a sense of closure that had been missing in the months since the incident. Not an ending. Kevin and I still had plenty of work to do, but a milestone in our journey toward a healthier relationship. After the conference, Kevin approached me in the lobby, maintaining a professional distance, but with warmth in his eyes that had been absent for years. Good speech, he said. Though you left out the part where siblings with badges should avoid pulling each other over. The joke, the first either of us had made about that night, caught me by surprise. And I found myself laughing. I thought that went without saying. How long are you in town? He asked. Just until tomorrow. I have meetings back in DC the day after. He nodded. Mom and Dad are hoping you'll come for dinner tonight. If you're free. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. Family dinner was still somewhat tense, but markedly improved from that disastrous night when I'd announced my appointment as director. Dad told fishing stories, Mom fussed over the food, Kevin talked about his new patrol route. and I shared sanitized versions of recent FBI operations. It wasn't perfect, but it was family, messy, complicated, frustrating, but ultimately irreplaceable. Later, as Kevin walked me to my car, he paused, hands in his pockets. "I've been thinking about transferring," he said abruptly. "Fresh start, new department where people don't know. What happened? Is that what you want?" I asked. He shrugged. "Sometimes. Other times I think running away doesn't solve anything. The problems would just follow me." "For what it's worth, I think you're right about that last part," I said. "The location isn't the issue." "Yeah." He kicked at a pebble on the driveway. "Anyway, I'm still figuring it out. But I wanted you to know." "I appreciate that," I said. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I added, "Whatever you decide, I'm in your corner, Kevin." Despite everything, he looked up, surprise evident in his expression. "Thanks, Ratch. That means a lot." As I drove back to my hotel, I reflected on how far we'd come in 6 months and how far we still had to go. The professional consequences of that night had been significant for both of us. Kevin's career had taken a hit he might never fully recover from, and I had faced difficult questions from the oversight committee about my handling of the situation. But the personal growth had been more important. I had been forced to examine my own role in our dysfunctional dynamic, to acknowledge that success meant little without meaningful personal connections. Kevin had begun the difficult work of addressing his insecurities and resentments rather than projecting them onto me. We would never be the kind of siblings who called each other daily or went on vacations together. Too much history stood between us for that kind of easy closeness. But we were finding a way to be family on new terms, terms based on mutual respect rather than competition, on understanding rather than assumption. And perhaps that was enough. Perhaps that was even better than what we had before. What do you think? Has sibling rivalry ever affected your family relationships? Have you ever been misunderstood by someone close to you? Drop a comment below and share your experience. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family, forgiveness, and finding your way through difficult relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the longest journeys start with acknowledging where you really are. My name is Megan Reynolds, and I'm 29 years old. I never thought leaving my 5-year-old daughter Lily with my mother-in-law Eleanor for one night would change our lives forever. Eleanor and I always had a strained relationship, but family is family, right? When my work emergency left me no choice, I reluctantly dropped Lily off, expecting everything to be fine. Lily is usually chatty after visits with Grandma, but this time was different. The car ride home was silent. Once home, she whispered words that chilled me to the bone. "Mommy." Grandma said I should never tell you what I saw. If you're watching this from anywhere in the world, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear what happened next. Trust me, you'll want to know how this ends. Life in Millfield wasn't exactly what I'd pictured when I graduated from physical therapy school, but it had its charms. Our modest 3-bedroom house sat in a quiet suburban neighborhood with good schools, which was perfect for Lily. I'd built a decent reputation at the Millfield Rehabilitation Center, where I worked with patients recovering from injuries and surgeries. My schedule was usually predictable, allowing me to be home for Lily in the afternoons. My husband, James, 32, worked as a sales director for a medical equipment company. His job required frequent travel, sometimes for weeks at a time. We made it work through FaceTime calls and creating special traditions for when he returned home. James was a devoted father when present, but his absences often left me as the primary parent. Then there was Eleanor, my mother-in-law. Our relationship had a promising start when James first introduced us 6 years ago. She smiled warmly, complimented my career choice, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. That facade crumbled shortly after our wedding. "You're keeping the crib in your bedroom?" she questioned when Lily was born. James slept in his own room from day one. Builds independence. The pediatrician recommended room sharing for the first 6 months, I explained. It reduces Sid's risk. Eleanor's tight smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, in my day we didn't need doctors telling us how to raise children. These subtle criticisms became a pattern. When Lily started solid foods, Eleanor insisted I was introducing certain foods too early or too late. When Lily had a tantrum in Eleanor's presence, I'd receive a lecture about proper discipline and reminders that James never behaved that way. What bothered me most was how Eleanor undermined my parenting in front of Lily. Grandma says you can have another cookie, she'd say after I'd clearly stated one was enough. Or, Grandma doesn't make you take naps at my house, making me look like the bad guy. James noticed these tensions but often dismissed them. That's just Mom being Mom, he'd say. She means well. His loyalty to his mother was admirable but frustrating when I needed him to stand up for our parenting decisions. Eleanor's favoritism toward James was obvious. She called him daily, sent care packages to his hotel rooms during business trips, and referred to him as my perfect son in conversations. Their close relationship stemmed from James's father dying when he was 12, leaving Eleanor to raise him alone. I understood their bond, but wished she could expand her circle of devotion to include me and respect my role as Lily's mother. Lily herself was a delight, bright, observant, and startlingly honest. Grandma's house smells funny, she once announced. Like old people and those flowers that stink. I had to stifle a laugh while gently explaining we don't comment on people's homes that way. Lily's unfiltered observations often gave me insight into what happened during her visits with Eleanor, as I believed in fostering open communication with my daughter. Families don't keep secrets from each other, I'd tell Lily. You can always tell Mommy anything, even if you're worried it might make someone upset. This philosophy directly contradicted Eleanor's generational belief that family business stays private and children should be seen and not heard. Our different approaches created an underlying tension whenever childcare arrangements came up. Which brings me to that Tuesday in October. I received an urgent email from my supervisor at 4 p.m. A major potential client wanted to see our facility the next morning, and as one of the senior therapists, I needed to prepare a presentation showcasing our rehabilitation programs. This would require working late into the evening and arriving early the next day, meaning I needed overnight childcare for Lily. Normally, I'd call my best friend Amy, who had a daughter Lily's age. Unfortunately, Amy's family was visiting relatives in Michigan. My parents lived 3 states away. My regular babysitter was unavailable. I tried calling James, but his phone went straight to voicemail. He was in Seattle for a conference, probably in meetings all day. After exhausting all options, I reluctantly called Eleanor. Despite our differences, she adored Lily and lived just 20 minutes away. She answered on the 3rd ring. Eleanor? It's Megan, I said, trying to sound upbeat. I hate to ask last minute, but I have a work emergency. Would you be able to watch Lily overnight? I'd pick her up first thing tomorrow morning. The pause lasted just long enough to make me uncomfortable before she replied. Of course I can take my granddaughter. What time will you bring her? An hour later, I pulled into Eleanor's immaculate driveway. Her 2-story Victorian home was always perfectly maintained, with manicured hedges and seasonal decorations. Lily bounced excitedly in her car seat. Despite my reservations about Eleanor's parenting opinions, Lily genuinely enjoyed visiting Grandma Ellie's house, which was filled with interesting antiques and hidden candy dishes. Remember your manners, I reminded Lily as we approached the front door with her overnight bag. And call me if you need anything. Eleanor opened the door before we knocked, wearing a crisp blue cardigan and pearls, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the late afternoon hour. There's my sweet girl, she cooed, bending to Lily's level. Her smile tightened as she straightened to address me. You look stressed, Megan. Long day. Just unexpected, I replied. Thank you again for doing this. I'll pick her up around 7:30 tomorrow morning. We'll be fine, Eleanor said, taking Lily's bag. I raised a child successfully after all. As I knelt to hug Lily goodbye, an unexpected wave of unease washed over me. Be good for Grandma, I whispered, hugging her extra tight. I love you, sweetie. Love you too, Mommy. Lily chirped, already distracted by the cookie she spotted on the hallway table. As I walked back to my car, I glanced back to see Eleanor's silhouette in the doorway, one hand on Lily's shoulder, the other waving goodbye with a stiff-armed gesture that felt more dismissive than farewell. I couldn't explain the knot forming in my stomach as I drove away. It was just one night, after all. The presentation preparation kept me at the office until nearly midnight. Between creating slides and practicing my delivery, I texted Eleanor twice for updates on Lily. The responses were minimal. She's fine. Had dinner and played with dolls. And later, asleep now. Stop worrying. I wanted to FaceTime with Lily before bed, but Eleanor didn't respond to that request. I tried calling James again and left a voicemail explaining the situation. Sleep came fitfully that night, my dreams filled with vague anxieties I couldn't quite name. My alarm jolted me awake at 5:30 a.m. After a quick shower and coffee, I rehearsed my presentation once more before heading to Eleanor's house. The morning was crisp and foggy, typical for October in Millfield. I arrived at 7:25, eager to see Lily before rushing to work. Eleanor's house looked different in the morning light, imposing rather than merely elegant. The curtains remained drawn on all windows, giving it a closed-off appearance. I rang the doorbell and waited longer than expected before Eleanor answered, looking surprisingly put together for the early hour. "Good morning," she said with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're right on time." I stepped into the foyer, noting how spotless everything was. Eleanor's house always had a museum-like quality, with antique furniture that seemed more for display than use. No evidence of a child's presence was visible, no toys, no drawings, no rumpled cushions. "Where's Lily?" I asked, checking my watch. "We need to get going soon." "Just finishing her breakfast," Eleanor replied, leading me to the kitchen. She woke up a bit cranky this morning. Probably didn't sleep well in a strange bed. Lily sat at the kitchen table, picking at a bowl of oatmeal. When she saw me, instead of her usual running leap into my arms, she slid quietly off her chair and walked over to hug my legs. Her subdued behavior immediately set off alarm bells in my mind. "Good morning, sweetie," I said, kneeling to her level. "Did you have fun with Grandma?" Lily nodded without speaking, her eyes darting briefly to Eleanor before looking down at her feet. "She's just tired," Eleanor interjected, wiping the already clean counter. "We had a full evening." I read her extra stories and let her stay up watching a movie. "What movie did you watch?" I asked Lily directly. She shrugged, still not making eye contact. Eleanor laughed, a high, tinkling sound that felt forced. "Oh, she's being shy now. It was just a princess movie, nothing exciting. Lily, go get your bag from the guest room while I talk to your mother." As Lily left the kitchen, I noticed she walked with unusual slowness, her shoulders slightly hunched. "Is she feeling okay?" I asked Eleanor. "She seems off. Children get moody sometimes." "Megan," Eleanor said dismissively. "You can't expect consistent behavior at this age. James was the same way, perfectly fine 1 minute, quiet the next. It's normal development." Before I could press further, Lily returned with her overnight bag. I checked inside to make sure we hadn't forgotten anything and noticed her favorite stuffed rabbit was missing. "Where's Mr. Floppy?" I asked, referring to the well-worn toy Lily had slept with since she was 2. "I don't know," Lily mumbled, the first words she'd spoken since I arrived. Eleanor waved her hand. "Probably left in the guest room. I'll find it and bring it next time I visit." Something in her tone made me suspicious, but with my presentation looming, I didn't have time to search the house. "Thank you again for watching her," I said, taking Lily's hand. "I appreciate the help. That's what family is for," Eleanor replied, her smile not quite matching her words. "We had a lovely time, didn't we, Lily?" Lily nodded automatically, gripping my hand tighter. The goodbye was brief and tense. As we walked to the car, I noticed Lily looking back at the house with an expression I'd never seen before, something between fear and confusion. She climbed into her car seat without her usual chatter about buckles and being a big girl. Once we were driving, I tried engaging her in conversation. "So, what did you and Grandma do last night?" "Stuff," Lily answered, looking out the window. "What kind of stuff? Did you play games?" "Some games." "Was dinner good?" "It was okay." Her one-word answers were completely out of character for my normally talkative child. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror and saw her biting her lower lip, a habit she displayed when worried or thinking hard about something. "Lily, honey, is everything okay? You can tell me if something's bothering you." "I'm just tired, Mommy," she replied, still staring out the window. I dropped the subject for the moment, focusing on driving and mentally rehearsing my presentation. Whatever was bothering Lily, I'd have time to address it after work. My mother-in-law might be difficult, but she loved Lily. Probably they'd had some minor disagreement that seemed bigger in Lily's 5-year-old perspective. Still, as I dropped Lily off at her preschool with extra hugs and promises to pick her up early, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had happened during that overnight stay, something that had changed my usually exuberant daughter into this quiet, withdrawn child. My presentation went well despite my distraction, and I managed to leave work by 3 p.m. to pick up Lily from preschool. Her teacher, Ms. Barbara, pulled me aside as the children gathered their backpacks. "Everything okay with Lily today?" she asked quietly. "She's been unusually withdrawn. Didn't participate in circle time or play with her usual friends during recess. She stayed with her grandmother last night," I explained. "I think she might be tired." "Was she upset at all?" Ms. Barbara shook her head. "Not upset, just quiet. Very unlike her." This confirmation of Lily's behavior change deepened my concern. During the drive home, Lily remained silent, clutching her backpack on her lap instead of telling me about her day as she normally would. At home, I set up our special talking space, the cozy corner of the living room with floor pillows where we had our most important conversations. I made Lily's favorite snack, apple slices with peanut butter, and sat cross-legged across from her. "Lily Bug, you know you can tell Mommy anything, right? No matter what." She nodded, carefully dipping an apple slice into the peanut butter. "Did something happen at Grandma Eleanor's house that's making you feel sad or worried?" Lily's lower lip trembled slightly. She put down her apple slice and looked around as if checking whether anyone else might hear. "Mommy," she whispered, leaning closer to me, "Grandma said I should never tell you what I saw." My heart rate instantly doubled, but I kept my expression neutral. "That's strange. In our family, we don't keep secrets from each other, remember? What did you see, sweetie?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want Grandma to get in trouble." "You won't get Grandma in trouble," I assured her, though I had no idea if that was true. "Mommy just needs to understand what's happening so I can help." Lily fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, looking down at the floor. "I woke up last night to get water. Grandma said I could get it myself because I'm a big girl." She paused, gathering courage. "When I was going back to my room, I heard talking downstairs. Grandma was supposed to be sleeping." "What kind of talking?" I asked gently. "Angry talking. Grandma and a man. Not Grandpa, a different man." My throat tightened. "Did you see this man?" Lily nodded. I went to the stairs and looked down. He came in through the back door. He had a black hat and a scratchy face. She demonstrated by rubbing her cheeks, indicating a beard or stubble. What were they talking about that sounded angry? "Money. And something called the stuff." The man said, "People are asking questions about the stuff," and Grandma said, "Nobody knows it's here." Lily's voice had dropped to barely a whisper. Then they went to the basement. Eleanor's basement was off limits during our visits, supposedly because of dangerous antiques and adult things stored there. I'd never questioned it before. "What happened next, Lily?" I was scared, but I wanted to see. I went down more stairs, real quiet like a mouse. Her small shoulders hunched forward as if she were reliving the moment. They were carrying packages from the basement. White packages wrapped in plastic, putting them in big black bags. My mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Then Grandma saw me, Lily continued, a tear sliding down her cheek. She looked really mad and scared at the same time. She told the man, "It's just my granddaughter," and came up to get me. She grabbed my arm really tight. Lily rubbed her upper arm, and I gently pushed up her sleeve to see a faint bruise forming there. Anger flared inside me, but I kept my voice calm. "Did she hurt you anywhere else?" Lily shook her head. She took me back to the guest room and said I was having a bad dream. She said if I told anyone about the man or the packages, bad people would come and take me away from you. She said you would be really mad at me too. "Oh, sweetie, I would never be mad at you for telling the truth," I said, pulling her into a hug. "What happened after that?" The man came upstairs. He looked at me really scary. Lily's voice quavered. He showed me something in his pocket. It was black and shiny. She shaped her hand like a gun. He said it was his special tool for kids who don't listen. Then Grandma gave me medicine to help me sleep. "Medicine?" I asked, alarmed. "What kind of medicine?" "Pink and sweet. In a special spoon. Children's Benadryl," I realized. Eleanor had given my daughter an antihistamine to knock her out after threatening her. Grandma sat with me until I got really sleepy. She kept saying it was all a dream and I should forget everything. But it wasn't a dream, Mommy. I saw white powder on her hands when she gave me the medicine. Like when we make cookies. But not the same. I felt sick. The white packages, the secretive behavior, the threats, the suspicious man, all pointed to drug-related activity. And my 5-year-old daughter had witnessed it. "Lily, did you see or hear anything else?" "Anything at all." She thought for a moment. "The man called Grandma Elibel. And he said they needed to move everything because someone named Rodriguez was asking questions." That detail made everything more terrifyingly real. This wasn't some misunderstanding or innocent explanation. My mother-in-law was apparently involved in drug dealing, had threatened my daughter, and allowed a dangerous man to intimidate her. "Am I in trouble, Mommy?" Lily asked in a small voice. I hugged her fiercely. "Absolutely not. You did exactly the right thing by telling me. You're the bravest girl I know." "Is Grandma in trouble?" I chose my words carefully. "Grandma made some bad choices. What she did was wrong, especially telling you to keep secrets from me and scaring you. That's not what loving grandmas do." As Lily relaxed slightly in my arms, I faced the horrifying reality of our situation and the difficult decisions ahead. My mother-in-law had exposed my child to criminal activity and threatened her into silence. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. After putting Lily down for a much-needed nap, I paced our living room, my mind racing through possibilities. My first instinct was to call James, but his phone still went straight to voicemail. I left an urgent message. "James, call me as soon as you get this. It's an emergency about your mother and Lily." I'm not exaggerating. Next, I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop, researching drug trafficking signs and behaviors. Everything I read matched what Lily had described: the secretive night meetings, the packaged substances, the threats. The involvement of someone named Rodriguez who was asking questions, likely law enforcement or a rival dealer. The more I read, the more certain I became that Eleanor was involved in drug distribution. But knowing something and proving it were different matters. Would anyone believe a 5-year-old's account? Would they believe me? Eleanor was a respected widow in the community, a regular church attendee who volunteered at the local hospital gift shop. I was the working mother who had left her child with Grandma to attend to a job emergency. In some people's eyes, that already made me the negligent one. Then there was the family angle. If I reported Eleanor, the consequences would ripple through our entire family. James would be devastated. His relationship with his mother might be destroyed. Holidays, family gatherings, Lily's relationship with her only grandmother, all would be forever altered. But as I considered these concerns, a stronger thought emerged. What if I didn't report it? Eleanor had threatened my daughter and allowed a dangerous criminal into her home while caring for Lily. She had administered medication without my permission to cover up her activities. Most chillingly, she had shown Lily that family members should lie to each other and keep dangerous secrets. If I stayed silent, what message would that send to Lily? That we protect people who harm us as long as they're family? That mommy says to tell the truth, but doesn't act when it's inconvenient? I made a decision. First, I needed to document everything while Lily's memory was fresh. I got my phone and gently woke Lily from her nap. "Sweetie, I need to ask you something important," I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Would it be okay if I record you telling me what happened at Grandma's house? It would help me remember all the details." Lily agreed. And I recorded a 10-minute video of her recounting everything: the man entering through the back door, the angry conversation about the stuff, the packages from the basement, Eleanor catching her watching, the threats, the man showing her the gun, the medicine to make her sleep. Her account remained consistent with what she'd told me earlier, adding credibility to her story. After the recording, I called my friend Amy, who had returned from her trip. Amy had been my rock through countless parenting challenges, and her husband Robert was a criminal defense attorney. "I need advice," I said when she answered. "Something happened at Eleanor's, and I don't know what to do." I explained the situation while Lily watched cartoons in the living room. Amy listened without interrupting, then responded with the directness I valued in our friendship. "Megan, you need to call the police," she said firmly. "This isn't a family squabble. Your daughter witnessed drug trafficking and was threatened by a potentially dangerous criminal. What if this man decides Lily is a liability?" Her words sent chills through me. "But it's James's mother," I protested weakly. "Reporting her feels like betrayal." "The betrayal happened when Eleanor put Lily in danger," Amy countered. "Robert would tell you the same thing. In fact, let me get him." Robert came on the line a moment later. After hearing the details, his advice was unequivocal: "Call the non-emergency police line now. Explain that your daughter witnessed what appears to be drug activity and was threatened. They'll want to interview her, probably with a specialist who's trained to talk with children. Don't delay on this, Megan. And don't confront Eleanor yourself. That could be dangerous." After hanging up, I sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. Then I looked at Lily, happily watching her show, innocent and trusting that the adults in her life would protect her. My maternal instinct finally overrode all other considerations. I dialed the non-emergency number for the Millfield Police Department. The dispatcher answered promptly, and I took a deep breath. "I need to report a possible drug trafficking situation that my 5-year-old daughter witnessed," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She was staying at her grandmother's house and observed suspicious packages, a threatening man, and was intimidated into keeping quiet. The dispatcher took basic information and then transferred me to a detective. I repeated my account, adding details about Eleanor's house, the basement, and the man Lily had described. "Mrs. Reynolds, based on what you're telling me, we'd like to speak with you and your daughter as soon as possible," the detective said. "This could be connected to an ongoing investigation. Can you come to the station this evening?" "We'll be there," I promised, a mixture of relief and dread washing over me. The wheels were now in motion, and there would be no turning back. The Millfield police station was busier than I expected for a Tuesday evening. Lily clutched her stuffed elephant, a substitute for the still-missing Mr. Floppy, as we were escorted to a small room with colorful chairs and a low table with crayons and paper. The space was obviously designed to put children at ease during difficult conversations. Detective Sarah Hayes introduced herself, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. With her was Marissa Collins, a specialist in interviewing child witnesses. "Mrs. Reynolds, we appreciate you coming in," Detective Hayes said as we settled into the chairs. "We'll need to speak with Lily alone. But you can watch through the observation window if that makes you both more comfortable." I explained this to Lily, who seemed nervous but brave. "These people help keep kids safe," I told her. "Just like you tell me the truth, you can tell them everything you saw at Grandma's house. I'll be right on the other side of that window. Like when I go to the doctor and you're still there." Lily asked. Exactly like that, I assured her. From the observation room, I watched as Marissa established rapport with Lily. Starting with casual conversation about her favorite cartoons and school activities before gently transitioning to the previous night. Lily's account remained consistent, and Marissa's skilled questioning helped draw out additional details without leading or suggesting. The man had a picture on his arm, Lily revealed, pointing to her forearm. Like a snake with a crown. And where did they put the bags after taking them from the basement? Marissa asked. In the man's car. It was black and very big. Like a monster truck, but not that big. Detective Hayes made notes beside me. A tattooed snake with a crown is associated with the Coronado cartel, she murmured. And the vehicle sounds like an SUV, possibly a Escalade. This matches intelligence we've been gathering. When the interview concluded, Marissa brought Lily back to me with praise for her cooperation and courage. Detective Hayes then sat with me while another officer took Lily to see the station's therapy dog. A golden retriever named Buddy. Mrs. Reynolds, I need to be direct with you, Hayes said once Lily was out of earshot. Your daughter's account aligns with an ongoing investigation into a drug distribution network operating in Millfield and surrounding counties. We've had Eleanor Matthews' residence under occasional surveillance based on tips and unusual visitor patterns, but lacked probable cause for a search warrant. The revelation that Eleanor had already been on police radar stunned me. You've been watching her house? For how long? That's part of an active investigation that I can't fully disclose. But I can tell you that your daughter's testimony, combined with our existing intelligence, gives us grounds to request an expedited search warrant for the premises. My phone rang James, finally returning my calls. I need to take this, I told Hayes. It's my husband. She nodded. Take your time. We'll need a statement from him as well. Especially since it's his mother's property. I stepped into the hallway to answer. James, where have you been? I've been calling for hours. Sorry. Back-to-back meetings all day with my phone off. What's going on? Your messages sounded serious. Taking a deep breath, I explained everything Lily's account, the threats, the suspicious packages, and the fact that we were currently at the police station. You took our daughter to the police about my mother. James's voice rose in disbelief. Without even talking to me first? Megan, what were you thinking? I was thinking about protecting our daughter, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. James, Lily saw drugs and a gun. She was threatened and drugged with Benadryl. What would you have had me do? Not rush to the worst conclusion. Not drag the police into a family matter before we could talk to Mom and figure out what really happened. The hurt and anger in his voice cut deep. This isn't a misunderstanding, I insisted. The police say your mother's house has been under surveillance. They were already suspicious of drug activity there. That's ridiculous, James scoffed. My mother is a 62-year-old widow who bakes cookies for church fundraisers. This has to be a mistake. Then come home and hear Lily's account yourself, I challenged. I'm not making this up, and neither is she. The line went quiet for a moment before James sighed heavily. I'll book the next flight out. Should be home by morning. As I returned to Detective Hayes, my phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor, Mrs. Wilson. Megan, strange cars at Eleanor's house tonight. Lots of activity. Everything okay? I showed the message to Hayes, who immediately pulled out her radio and spoke rapidly into it. Within minutes, she informed me that officers were being dispatched to observe Eleanor's house without approaching. Mrs. Reynolds, we'd like you and Lily to stay with friends tonight. Somewhere Eleanor wouldn't expect, Hayes advised. Until we execute the search warrant, it's best to be cautious. Do you have a safe place to go? I called Amy, who immediately offered her guest room. By 8 p.m., Lily and I were settled at Amy's house, the reality of our situation sinking in. I was hiding from my mother-in-law, while police prepared to raid her home based on my daughter's testimony. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this moment. While Lily played with Amy's daughter Emma, I sat in their kitchen with Amy and Robert, the weight of the day's events finally hitting me. What if I'm wrong? I whispered. What if this ruins our family for nothing? You're not wrong. Robert assured me. The police wouldn't be pursuing a search warrant if Lily's account didn't match other evidence they already have. You did the right thing, Megan. The hard thing. But the right thing. That night, lying in Amy's guest bed with Lily curled against me, I stared at the ceiling, wondering what tomorrow would bring. James would be arriving. Eleanor's house would be searched, and our family would never be the same. Sleep finally came in fitful bursts, my dreams filled with shadowy figures and packages wrapped in white plastic. The search warrant was executed at 6 a.m. the following morning. I learned this from Detective Hayes, who called to inform me that Eleanor had been taken into custody after significant evidence was found in her home, approximately 2 kilograms of cocaine, $43,000 in cash, 3 unregistered firearms, and various drug packaging materials. We found all of this in a hidden room in the basement, accessed through what appeared to be a wine cellar, Hayes explained. There was also a stuffed rabbit that may belong to your daughter. Mr. Floppy, I confirmed, feeling sick that Eleanor had hidden Lily's comfort toy in her drug storage room. What happens now? Ms. Matthews is being processed and questioned. She's requesting a lawyer and hasn't provided any substantive information yet. We'll need you and your husband to come to the station later today for additional statements. James's flight landed at 7:30 a.m. I picked him up at the airport. Lily asleep in her car seat after our disrupted night. The tension between us was palpable as I drove. Have you heard from your mother? I asked. No, James replied, his voice hollow. But I have 17 missed calls from unknown numbers that started around midnight. Probably her trying to reach me from jail. He turned to look at me, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. Megan, are you absolutely sure about what Lily told you? Kids make things up sometimes. She didn't make this up, James. The police found exactly what she described, drugs in the basement, guns, everything. Your mother threatened our daughter and exposed her to dangerous criminals. James fell silent, staring out the window at the familiar streets of our town, now transformed by this new reality. When we arrived at Amy's house, he went straight to Lily, who had woken up and was eating breakfast with Emma. I watched from the doorway as he knelt beside her chair. Hey, Pumpkin, he said softly. Daddy missed you. Lily's face lit up momentarily before clouding over. Are you mad at me about Grandma? No, sweetheart, I'm not mad at you, James assured her, though I could see the strain in his face. Can you tell me what happened at Grandma's house? It's really important. Over chocolate chip pancakes, Lily recounted her experience again, with the same details she'd provided to me and the police. As James listened, I watched his expression shift from skepticism to horror to grief. And the man showed you his special tool? James asked carefully. Lily nodded solemnly. In his pocket. It was black and shiny. He said it was for kids who don't listen. James closed his eyes briefly, then pulled Lily into a tight hug. Thank you for telling me the truth, Pumpkin. You did nothing wrong. Later, while Lily played with Emma under Amy's supervision, James and I sat in Robert's home office to talk privately. I need to see her, James said, running his hands through his hair. I need to hear from my mother directly. The detective said we can go to the station this afternoon, I replied. They want our formal statements anyway. James nodded, his expression hardening. I believed in her my whole life. After Dad died, she was my hero, working 2 jobs. Never missing my baseball games, putting me through college. How could she do this? How could she put Lily in danger? I had no answers for him. We sat in silence until it was time to leave for the police station. The process was exhausting, formal statements, paperwork. Discussions with prosecutors about how Lily's testimony might be handled if the case went to trial. James was permitted a supervised visit with Eleanor in an interview room while I stayed with Lily. When he returned 30 minutes later, his face was ashen. She confessed, he said quietly as we walked to the car. Not to everything, but enough. She started letting her boyfriend store drugs at her house 2 years ago after she got into financial trouble. Reverse mortgage gone wrong, credit card debt. He promised easy money just for providing a safe house where no one would suspect. Her boyfriend? I asked, surprised. Eleanor had never mentioned dating anyone. Marco. Been seeing him for 3 years, apparently. Another thing she kept from me. James's voice was bitter. She claimed she was just storing packages at first, not dealing. But then Marco convinced her she could make more money by helping distribute to select clients. Mostly wealthy people in her social circles who wanted discreet service. The Rodriguez person Lily mentioned. A rival dealer who was getting suspicious about Marco's operation. That's why they were moving everything that night. They thought they might get raided. We picked up Lily from the children's area where an officer had been keeping her occupied with games. On the drive home, James continued sharing what he'd learned. She tried to blame you. Said you were an absent mother who prioritized work over family, that you were poisoning Lily and me against her. He shook his head in disgust. I shut that down immediately. Told her she lost any right to criticize your parenting when she exposed our daughter to drug dealers and threatened her. That night, after finally getting Lily to sleep in her own bed, we received concerning news from Detective Hayes. Marco, Eleanor's boyfriend, had been identified as Marco Vasquez, a mid-level distributor with connections to the Coronado cartel. He remained at large, and there was concern he might view Lily as a liability for identifying him. We're increasing patrols in your neighborhood, Hayes assured us. And we'll have an unmarked car monitoring your house overnight. Just take normal precautions, keep doors and windows locked, be aware of your surroundings. The following days were a blur of legal consultations, arrangements for Lily to meet with a child psychologist, and adjusting to our new normal. Eleanor remained in custody. Denied bail due to flight risk concerns. The prosecutor indicated she was considering cooperating in exchange for leniency, providing information about the larger distribution network. James struggled deeply with the betrayal. Every memory I have of her is tainted now, he confessed one night after Lily was asleep. Was she dealing drugs when she came to Lily's birth? When she helped us move into this house? How long has she been living this double life? We decided to start family therapy to help us, especially Lily, process the trauma. Dr. Sanderson, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, helped Lily understand that what happened wasn't her fault and that she had done exactly the right thing by telling me the truth. Grandma made very bad choices, Dr. Sanderson explained to Lily. Sometimes adults we love do wrong things, and it's confusing and scary. But your mom and dad are doing everything to keep you safe. 3 weeks after Eleanor's arrest, with Marco still at large, we made the difficult decision to move. Our house held too many memories. And the knowledge that Eleanor knew every detail of our lives there, from our schedules to our security system, made us constantly uneasy. We found a 3-bedroom ranch-style home across town. Still in Lily's school district, but in a gated community with better security. The move was exhausting but therapeutic, giving us a fresh start in a space unmarked by betrayal. James's journey to acceptance was rocky. He visited Eleanor twice more in jail, each visit shorter than the last. After the 3rd visit, he returned with reddened eyes, but a resolute expression. She's still trying to justify everything, he told me. Says she did it for me, to preserve her financial independence so she wouldn't be a burden. As if exposing our family to drug cartels was some kind of maternal sacrifice. Extended family reactions were mixed. James's cousins in Colorado were supportive, while his aunt, Eleanor's sister, accused us of fabricating evidence to steal Eleanor's house, a ridiculous claim, as we wanted nothing to do with the property now tainted by criminal activity. 6 weeks after the arrest, Marco Vasquez was apprehended trying to cross into Canada. His capture brought immense relief, removing the lingering fear that he might seek retribution against Lily. Through it all, I marveled at my daughter's resilience. Though she sometimes had nightmares and went through a phase of being afraid of the dark, she also showed remarkable strength. One evening, as I tucked her into bed in our new house, she looked up at me thoughtfully. Mommy, was I brave to tell you about Grandma's bad secrets? The bravest, I assured her, smoothing her hair. You did exactly what we always talk about, telling the truth even when it's hard. She considered this, hugging the new stuffed bunny that had replaced Mr. Floppy. If Grandma gets better and stops doing bad things, will she still be my grandma? The question broke my heart. She'll always be your grandma, I said carefully. But people have to earn our trust when they break it. It might be a long time before Grandma can do that. This seemed to satisfy Lily, who nodded solemnly before closing her eyes. As I watched my daughter drift into peaceful sleep, I reflected on how my initial instincts about Eleanor had proven valid. The subtle criticisms, the undermining, the controlling behavior, all had been warning signs of someone accustomed to deception. I hadn't trusted my gut enough before, but I would never make that mistake again. Some lessons come at too high a price. 6 months after Eleanor's arrest, life had settled into a new normal. Our new home felt truly ours now, filled with fresh memories and untainted by the shadow of betrayal. Lily had adjusted well to the changes, her natural resilience shining through despite occasional setbacks. Eleanor's legal situation had resolved more quickly than expected. Facing overwhelming evidence and multiple serious charges, she accepted a plea deal. A 6-year sentence in a minimum security facility in exchange for comprehensive information about the drug distribution network she'd been part of. The information led to several additional arrests, including some surprisingly prominent community members who had been regular customers. James had begun the long process of healing, though his relationship with his mother remained fundamentally altered. After much soul-searching and therapy, he had visited Eleanor at the correctional facility. A tense meeting that lasted barely 30 minutes. She looks older, he told me afterward. Smaller somehow. She apologized, actually seemed sincere. Said she never meant for things to go so far. He shook his head. I told her I forgive her as a person, but that our relationship would never be the same. And that any future contact with Lily would be entirely on our terms, with strict supervision. This measured approach reflected James's growth through therapy, neither cutting his mother off entirely nor rushing to restore trust that had been catastrophically broken. Our marriage had weathered the storm as well, emerging stronger through the crisis. The initial tension between us had transformed into deeper appreciation for each other's strengths. James admired my decisive action to protect Lily, while I respected his ability to face the painful truth about his mother without denying reality. I keep thinking about what would have happened if Lily hadn't told you what she saw, James said one evening as we sat on our new back porch. If Eleanor had succeeded in scaring her into silence. I try not to think about that, I admitted. The what-ifs are too frightening. Family therapy had been invaluable for all of us, especially the sessions focusing on healthy boundaries and communication. Dr. Sanderson had helped us develop age-appropriate ways to discuss difficult topics with Lily, emphasizing that safety and honesty always trumped family loyalty when the two came into conflict. What happened at Grandma's house was scary, Lily told Dr. Sanderson during one session I'll never forget. But Mommy believed me, and Daddy came home, and now we have a new house where the bad man doesn't know where we live. Her simple summary captured the essence of what we'd been trying to teach her, that while we couldn't control other people's choices, we could create safety through honesty, action, and family unity. The community response to our situation had been largely supportive. My colleagues at the rehabilitation center rallied around us, covering shifts when needed and respecting our privacy. Lily's school implemented additional security measures without stigmatizing her, treating the situation with appropriate seriousness while maintaining normalcy in her daily routine. We found unexpected friendship with Detective Hayes, who had gone above and beyond during the investigation. She occasionally stopped by to check on us, bringing her therapy dog buddy for Lily to play with. These visits helped normalize police presence for Lily, transforming them from figures associated with a traumatic time into community helpers who had kept her safe. As for Eleanor's house, James decided to sell it and donate the proceeds to a local organization supporting children affected by parental incarceration. I don't want anything from that part of our lives, he explained. but maybe some good can come from it. One cool autumn afternoon, almost exactly a year after that fateful overnight stay, Lily came home from kindergarten with a family tree assignment. She spread the paper on our kitchen table, looking up at me uncertainly. "Do I still put Grandma Eleanor on my tree?" she asked. I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. "Grandma Eleanor is still part of your family history, sweetheart. She made very bad choices that hurt our family, and she's facing consequences for those choices. But people are complicated. They can do wrong things and still have once been good in other ways." Lily considered this, then carefully wrote Grandma Eleanor on one branch of the tree. Beneath it, she added in her wobbly handwriting, "Lives far away now." Her simple notation captured the physical and emotional distance that now existed, presented in terms she could understand and accept. That evening, as James helped Lily prepare for bed, I overheard their conversation through the partially open door. "Daddy, if I ever see something scary again, I should still tell, right?" "Even if someone says not to." "Always, pumpkin," James replied firmly. "Brave people tell the truth, even when it's hard." Like you did. Like Mommy believed me, even though it was about Grandma. Exactly. That's what real love looks like, believing each other and keeping each other safe. Their exchange brought tears to my eyes, confirmation that despite everything, we were teaching our daughter the right lessons about trust, honesty, and true family loyalty. The journey through this ordeal had transformed us in countless ways. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, the courage to take action despite uncertainty, to stand firm when it would have been easier to look away. James had learned that the parent he idolized was deeply flawed, yet found the capacity to acknowledge truth without letting it destroy his ability to trust others. And Lily had experienced the crucial lesson that speaking up about wrongdoing, even when scared, was always the right choice. As a family, we had discovered that real love sometimes requires difficult decisions and uncomfortable truths. That protection sometimes means disruption. That healing doesn't follow a neat timeline, but comes in fits and starts, in small moments of normalcy and connection. If you're watching this and facing your own impossible choice between family loyalty and doing what's right, I hope our story gives you courage. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the most necessary ones. Protecting your children isn't just about physical safety, it's about showing them through your actions that truth matters, that their voices deserve to be heard, and that real love never requires silence in the face of wrong. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect someone you love? Or has someone stood up for you when it wasn't easy? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this account helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their own difficult family situations. Thank you for listening to our journey. And remember, in the choice between comfortable secrets and uncomfortable truths, the truth will always set you free, even when the path is painful.